Well,
Hello, everyone. How's it going? Okay. Yeah. I just got today's tweet out. Do me a favor. You guys know the drill. Go give it some love. Engagement always helps out. Ah, I beat the bot again. Suck it, bot. I believe it do have slobber on it. Thank you for the 47 mechanicals. You're still bleeding out, dude. You need to like plug your nose or something. Or maybe just go get it checked. Better safe than sorry. Okay. So, good evening, chat. Let me grab today's artwork. Listen, all of chat's about to catch hands. Okay. Welcome to Tuesday. How's it going, guys? Here is today's artwork. Do me a favor. Also, go give the artist some love. The artist is Level, aka oh god, what does he go by on Twitter? Admiral Egg, I believe so. He's a fantastic artist. He loves drawing Lartoria, so definitely go give him some love. Hello, Kaiser. How's it going? Hello, Angora. Hello, Ender. But again, I hope everybody is doing good. Mega, thank you for the big 6-0. 1/5 of my life sub. Yo, don't say that. That sounds bad. But thank you for the 5 years. Chat, can we get some love for Mega? Hello, Pokey. How's it going? He's one of us. Apples and melons on Twitter, it seems. Oh, right. Maybe that's what it is. Wait, did it used to be Admiral Egg? Is that his handle? Is that? I don't know. Anyways, something like that. But like I said, Level's a fantastic artist, so. When you'll never be hugged by your king, don't you dare say that. I get hugged in my dreams, okay, chat? So, we actually have quite a bit to do today. Today is, damn it, that's not what I wanted to do. Today, I literally start the stream out wrong. Today is, basically, we're going to be doing part 2. I'm going to be going over the GSSR with you guys today, so we'll talk a little bit about that. We're also going to be, of course, covering the Shishou buff, and then later in the stream, we are going to have, you know, your standard fare of media share. So, GSSR review, yep. Which a pen skill on Hokusai is the second best? I'm thinking the third. You'd have to remind me what the third does, although I believe on her it's anti-berserker. I'm pretty sure it's that, but yeah, I mean, I feel like if it's anti-berserker, it just makes a lot of sense. You're just going even further into her wheelhouse, so to speak. So it's totally up to you, but I would probably go with that over the first append. Otherwise, I would definitely go with mana loading before anything else. Pen 2 then a pen 3, yep. Yeah, it's one of those deals where it's like you can get the extra attack finesse and it's actually going to be somewhat useful on her because you know you're going to be no great. I think we'll do this because otherwise I'm going to be lacking in damage. It's now 4 turn, literally because I didn't give her one arts up. She did not get enough refund. See, chat, our discussion about refund yesterday ends up showing up right away here. With going extra 4 or 5. Yeah, I mean, like, so the only point that I was gonna make is like you will be getting, I'd say, a decent chunk of extra chains on Hokusai, and part of the reason for that is going to be that you're going to be wanting to use her arts cards so darn much, particularly with things like pre-carding and stuff being the case. You just know it's going to be something that you'll have to deal with no matter what. So in that regard, the first append is still useful. I will say though, you know, with Hokusai, she's not the best refunder in terms of the amount of Noble Phantasm she'll generate. So trying to solve it by virtue of buffing the extra attack is okay, but it's not going to completely get rid of the issue, and that still requires carding, something that we'll end up having to talk about with Shishou as well later. So yeah, I mean, I still agree. I think the logical course of action is to just grab the third one because it's just more damage to the thing that she's already good at damaging. Double Castria Habitat all day. As long as it work. I just am somebody that is trying to get away with using some units I don't normally use. And so that's why you're seeing me here. I probably should try to dump the other Castoria and not actually use her, just because I'm just accidentally bonding her here in effect. But that would require me having the time to sit down and think, which maybe I will have a little bit of time, because I discovered today that I don't actually have to do my FP rolling this month on JP, because we rolled so much for Draco that I had enough just to do my Grail casting, which is very rare. My JP account normally does not have that happen. So I was like, okay, sweet. At least it was enough and I don't have to do that anymore. It's still a little bit to spare as well, so that'll help me out next month whenever I need to. Is Arcubid worth going for if you already have other neutral loopers? She could be really nice in certain circumstances. Like, I'm not going to say that she's, like, worthless if you already have neutral loopers, but I am going to say, again, like, it's totally up to you and you don't have to have her. There's going to be some, and I think this goes without saying. Oh, hello. Hello, Caldeagers. I'm sorry, you snuck in there and I didn't see you. I hope you're having a good day too. But I think this goes without saying that with regards to any of these like neutral loopers, okay, or really any of the big meta damage dealers, I think the way to think about this and to approach this is that there are going to be times where they are seemingly really good, okay? And I'm going to use an analog for this. If you guys remember when Arjuna Alter first came out, there was a time period right after Arjuna Alter came out where he was just absolutely amazing. He was the solution for seemingly everything. And then that very quickly kind of fell off after about, like, I'd say 3 months after his release. And it doesn't mean you can't still use him, but one, it stopped getting talked about nearly as much, and two, they started to just kind of maneuver things around to either not necessarily be anti him, but maybe not as conducive to using him. And you kind of see as the unit is certainly still usable, but they are not the only solution, and maybe not even the easiest solution in a lot of circumstances. You're going to see this same sort of scenario play out with units like Arcuid, units like Ibuki Summer, and basically it already has happened as well with units like Morgan and Arjuna Alter. Okay, this is just the case. It's how it always is. So the only thing I'm going to tell you, because I feel like this happens anytime I ever talk about any of these units, right? So like, I'm talking about like, hey, let's say I were to do a review on Summer Ibuki, and I were to say like, here's what I think of her, here's where I think she's good. And I will inevitably get somebody chiming in and being like, well, I've used her the whole time. You're understating how good she is. And I'm going to be like, that's the bias right there. It's you've used her the whole time. In a weird way, that makes you super familiar with the character, but it also means that you didn't use anyone else. So you're sitting here thinking, oh my God, she's so good. She works on this node, she works on that node, she works on that node. God, she's just so amazing. But the reality is, you probably could have gotten away with doing those nodes without her. And the same is going to be true for Arcuate as well. So you will see this crop up from time to time. You're going to see people talk about how good the unit is, and the unit is good. It's just, again, keep in mind, guys, there's never just one solution to a node. So there's never this, you have to have the unit type of thing. I'm going to tell you, again, roll for the units that you want. And again, my stance on this is that the only units in the entire game that are close to gotta haves are the meta supports. And outside of that, there really isn't anything. And I'm gonna say, even them, they're still not you must have. They're just sort of you kind of really want, and it helps you out. But again, you can play the game without even the meta supports, so it's not that big of a deal. Typically, things like that are the only solution I will never like. I can get away with using a waifu of mine. I'm going to. Right. Yeah, and that's my entire point. Is it's very rare because I've seen people be like, oh, you know, like so and so is the easy solution. Like Melison's the easy solution. Tiamat's the easy solution. Kukulkan's the easy solution. And that may actually be the case. It's just that for every single one of those times that has happened, if I didn't have the unit, was I up Shit's Creek without having that unit? No, I still found an easy solution. So it's like that's all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to like temper expectations some and make you guys realize that like there's going to be a lot of hype, a lot of like propaganda getting kind of spewed out about each of these units and why they're so good and why you have to have them. And I'm just going to try to break that conditioning for you. I'm just going to try to be your voice of sanity and say you do not have to have that unit. Okay, that's the best thing I can do for each of you because it might save you some, you know, dilemmas of who to roll on. It might also just save you straight up cash. So it's totally up to you whether or not you heed that advice. You can absolutely go, you know what, Cad, I don't care. I want Arcuate. You know what, Cad, I don't care. I want Summer Ibuki, and that's perfectly fine. Like it's just it's always down to taste at that point. How cute is Bakken singing in the shop screen? What if I told you that I still haven't heard it? Because for some odd reason, every single time I've gone into the shop screen, I have not had sound on. I need to actually sit down and do it, though. Bakken singing is God tier, yeah. Is Reigns a must-have? I think with regards to the unaspected, the uncard typed, 50% charging supports, none of them are gotta have so much as you can pool them all together and say having 50% chargers in your Chaldea is like the best thing ever. So you really want to have this. Who makes this up is totally up to you. But that's usually the big thing. A newer account with Scotty, but no one who can loop. Let me stop you right there. Even amongst low stars, there are units that can loop. Right? So this is sort of the lack of judgment. And here's the thing. The reason I find issue with your statement right off the gate, Blue, is purely because you said there are attackers who are an answer the majority of the time. Here's the issue with this. If you're a brand new player and you have nobody else, sure, that applies. If you are a veteran player who has plenty of other options, no one cares. It quite literally doesn't matter. Those players have so many options already. If you're somebody that's already been playing the game for a while, you have a plethora of options at your fingertip, including literally every other like Berserker and, you know, several other options. So to me, it's why I don't sit there and feed the hype beast. I feel like if I'm feeding the hype beast, I am doing you a disservice. I'm instead going to tell you, here is how good this unit is, but also here is why you don't have to have them. So you will never hear me say you have to have those units, ever. And I would say don't ever expect me to. It does not matter who the unit is. What's your opinion on Merlin as a support? He's really good, at least in a challenge scenario. And to be clear on this too, the reason that I'm also going to say why I lean more towards the supports. The supports are more of the irreplaceable ones. What they do is so augmenting towards your account, and nobody else can do it. Usually, right? So it's why when I look at this, a Scotty, a Castoria, a Merlin, you name it, right? That's why they're high on that list for me. It's because there really is not usually another analog. And the only other analog is going to be another top tier support. So the issue at play with that and why I feel the way that I do is because there are so many damage dealing options. And several of them are free, several of them are welfare, and usually it's not that big of a deal to try and get it done. I just returned to the game 2 months ago. My first 4-star unit was Penth, grailed her to 100. I love my glass cannon Amazon. Hey, go for it. You're not alone in that. I know several people that like Penth. We're talking about free-to-play and newer accounts? Sure. And I can definitely attest to the mentality of if you get one of those bigger units as a free-to-play, it will be very good for you. But I think the thing that, in all honesty, I have come to realize after all my years of playing FGO, it doesn't matter. I can make do with the units that I want to use. I think it was Peanut earlier that was saying it. But basically, yeah, if I want to use my waifu or husbando, I'm going to do that. And that's it. And I can do it. Because that's the way this game works. So at the end of the day, that's why I tell people, really what you should do more than any of even my gameplay advice are pick the units that make you happy. If getting that big meta unit is what makes you happy, go for it. If instead, though, you just like, I don't know, like Baking a whole lot, there is nothing wrong with continuing to use Baking and just making do with that. Because the thing that I've realized over all this time is that, like, yeah, later on down the line, Tiamat's going to come out. Tiamat's going to shit on Baking. She's going to do so much more damage than Baking. I don't care. Nor does anyone else, right? Like, if you're someone that likes Baking, you just literally don't care. And somebody constantly sitting there and telling you that you need to roll Tiamat doesn't make you want to roll Tiamat. It instead just makes you further entrenched in your decision. And that's my entire point in all of this, is that, like, again, even for a free-to-play or a newer player, they can get that meta support. It's going to help them. But at the end of the day, the thing that they're going to most enjoy is getting their favorite units. Getting the people that they actually care about, rather than maybe someone that they don't care. And I will say this, if the unit that you care about is a meta damage dealer or meta support or something like that, more power to you. That way you get the best of both worlds. But you do not have to think along the lines of, is this unit super good? Oh no. This game is fundamentally at its core, by the way, chat, a like waifu collector. That's what it is. It is just quite literally a collection simulator. You're just tending to your crop of waifus. And that's really the only thing you need to look at it as. Roll for who you like, and if they happen to be a really good unit, then yeah, all the more power to you. Exactly. Please explain to me why everyone's pooping their Pampers over Tiamat when all I want is MP5 Bagekko. If you want MP5 Bagekko, get MP5 Bagekko. Like Barghest is a fantastic unit. You don't have to grab like all these other options. Why are people pooping their pants over Tiamat? Well, partially because Tiamat's an alter ego. Alter egos do 1.5 times damage when they're effective. In most cases, there is some cases where they're actually 2 times. And they do that to all the cavalry classes, right? Meanwhile, cavalry classes against their actual counter in their triangle do 2 times. And yet somehow still this 1.5 times unit is beating just about all the 2 times units. That's why people are like making a big deal about Tiamat. So it is what it is. And there's even some cases where basically she'll out damage even a knight class, which is, to me, that one's the ridiculous one. I do think early on you need to balance waifus plus meta supports without meta supports grinding as PETA. Yeah, I mean I'm gonna agree on that, but I'm also going to say it's sort of your prerogative. If you basically find metagaming fun, you can go with metagaming. If you find efficiency fun, you can chase efficiency. If you find challenge fun, you can instead try to buck all of those trends and go after just, trying to do something truly difficult. Or maybe you just, really like Lartoria and you just want to pick Lartoria and use Lartoria. It kind of all works so long as you don't go like, oh man, like I am trying to take an assassin into a node full of all casters, right? That's the only thing. That's why I say, like, you should try to collect everything. There is merit to building your account well, but again, I feel like the best advice I can give you guys is to just tell you don't have to have these units. I know, it's crazy. It's not a popular opinion. It just is what it is. And it's the actual truth. I know this from having played for years and years and years. The hype beast is a thing. People will tell you got to have the unit, and you don't have to have the unit. Like, again, and I want to make this clear for anyone that's feeling like somehow offended or upset over this. Please understand, I am not saying the likes of like Tiamat, Kukulkan, Melison, Arcuid, right? Any of those are bad. I will, when I do the reviews for these upcoming units especially, absolutely show you here is why they are cracked, here is why they are so good. And then I'm going to end it by telling you don't have to have the unit. And it's the truth. Because again, like, chat, there have been several units on JP that I have not rolled. Some of them were considerably meta at the time, and I did perfectly fine without them. So it is what it is. I think the only unit that might even approach mandatory is Castoria. I think there's a good case to be made for something like that, but I'm also going to say that even in like a challenge environment and stuff, like let's say you wanted to do the invincible comp, you can take someone else's Castoria, right? So like there are still ways around most of that, and it's usually just, hey, make sure you have like some of the parts. You don't necessarily have to have all the parts. Man, I really want Tiamat just for completion since I have Medusa and Gorgon, then go for it, right? Like, and again, that's my entire stance on this, is I'm not telling you not to roll. I'm telling you you don't have to. I'm telling you, chat, and this is something that I think other people don't want you to hear. I'm telling you you have a choice. and that's I mean that, right? Like, because so many people will try to make you think that it's non-optional. You don't have a choice. You have a choice. You absolutely have a choice to make. Don't let people tell you otherwise. You don't have to 3-turn everything. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like, and this is kind of a weird thing, right, chat? But peak efficiency in a JP 90++ nowadays usually involves not 3-turning to some degree. Because the problem at play is if you really want peak efficiency in those events, you usually have to like not run the damage CE, and most of the ++ events sort of kind of like are designed for you to actually do that. Open my drink. There it is. Okay. At least with Shishou, super budget support gets to EX tier. EX tier, I wouldn't say that. Shishou definitely has her drawbacks, but she's definitely very good, at least in terms of the fact that she is basically free, right? I think this is an important thing that people do need to understand. I almost scuffed there. I'm rolling for Arcuid just for Shishou. No, you're not. No, you're not. Don't lie to me, Lucari. She's an FP unit. No, you're not. She's permanent, yeah. Now, I will say, if you're planning to like maybe grail her or something, sure. But I'm also gonna say that's still absolutely possible to do, even with just FP. So I'm rolling Arcuate just to build pity. Yo, okay, like in that regard, I'm low key kind of glad that FGO doesn't have pity reset because I can't tell you how many times I've seen that in other gacha communities where they're like, yeah, I'm just rolling on this banner just to build up my pity for the next banner. And then they're like, oh shit, I got the unit. You're like, what the fuck, man? Like, I don't know. It's the same thing as like, I'm just rolling for craft essences, right? Like, we know. We know, chat. Gotta build my pity counter. Listen, chat, I hate to break this to you. I'm very likely to luck sack coming up soon. Why? Because I've been taken to pity like 3 or 4 times lately. Odds are against me continuing to go to pity, so it's like, damn, that it's gonna feel nice to actually like successfully roll on the units that I want. Uh-oh, you fucked up. No, trust me, I know how to monkey paw this. Not gonna lie, I might just be rolling for Cream C next Valentine's because whoa mama. Right, but I think the consideration that's always gonna be there, right, is again that, hey, you know, there's also this unit that I can be getting. And I think that's the big thing that people gotta understand is if you start to strip away, would you literally roll for the Creamhild CE if there was nothing else on the banner? And to some degree, some people might say yes. But other people might go, well, I hadn't thought of that, right? Dad lives in the border of pity. Listen, I just want to know when RNGesus is going to take pity on me. It must have gotten a triple arch chain, because I was going to say, I don't know how I got to the MP otherwise. Is there any benefit to rolling during Valentine's CBC instead of rolling any other time? Yes, but the benefit is usually that you only are getting, like, say, females or males to show up on their respective. So yeah, it's like you can get better chances at story locked servants and stuff like that. Hello, Miss Tutu. Thank you for the raid. Welcome, everybody. How's it going? Guys, if you haven't already, make sure you check out Miss Kuragi Tutu. She's a good friend of mine and a fantastic artist. Oh, hold on. Let me pop that. We were just talking about God, what were we talking about? This has been a variety of subjects now across the board. But oh, also Tutu, I don't know if you heard, I don't know if a lot of people heard, but I actually set my debut date. I will be officially becoming a VTuber myself, which means you will no longer have to stare at this ugly mug. So instead you will get a anime avatar. Talking about rolling for Arcuate. Yeah, I guess that's how like all of that started, right? You talked about people having a choice in FGO. I did. But we love real faces. Too bad, chat. I like normal CAD. It's still going to be CAD. But what I want to stare at. What is that? Is that a complete sentence? I'm going to miss that handsome face. Don't worry. It will be replaced by a handsome face. Finally beat the boss. Nice. Gonna go make dinner? Okay. Choice is life's great lie. Me, a Semiramis enjoyer. I don't know about that, right? Like there you definitely have a choice in life. I think the people that try to tell you that choice is a lie think that there is a logical reason that you don't have a choice. And I've seen this actually debated by like astrophysicists and stuff. But they usually have a tendency to think that like you don't actually have a choice because you're forced to do certain things. And I'm like, no, that's usually not the case. Chat, do you have to have a job? Do you have to make money? You don't. Most people, though, will tell you that you do because the alternative sucks. And so they'll say it's the illusion of choice, that you don't have that choice. But it's like, no, I mean, technically you do have a choice, right? So, like, here's what I mean when I say this. Chat, in theory, there is nothing stopping you today from going out, learning a bunch of survival skills, kitting yourself out, and then just disappearing into the wilderness for the next 20 years. Living off the land, never having to pay taxes, not needing a job, and just subsisting. There is nothing stopping you from doing that. But nobody wants to. That is the issue. I say nobody. There are definitely people that want to, and like low-key, I actually like watching some of those videos where people go and spend like, hey, I'm just going out into the wilderness for like 3 months and I'm going to go build myself a house in the wilderness. Those are actually really interesting to me. It's a bad choice, but it's a choice. It's a bad choice for most people because most people couldn't cut it, especially not nowadays. But physics of your brain decides your will. No, I decide my will. Life without internet is no life? Damn. Today I learned that before the internet there was no life. Thoughts on those building structures in the wild videos? I actually really like them. I think they're really cool. Like they're like, chat, if I just want something to like veg out and watching some of those is like freaking ASMR for me. Sorry, time to go live in the wilderness. Excellent. I've converted another. that was my hope ultimately. They will laugh when the zombie apocalypse arrives. They won't even know the zombie apocalypse arrived. They'll just be out in the wilderness, chat. They will just continue to exist. You're telling people to permanently touch grass. I wouldn't even say grass necessarily, more like dirt. Because again, you have no idea whether or not it'll be grassy in the area that you're going to. Life pre 1983 didn't exist. That's what I learned from chat today. I can't believe life started in the 80s, right? If you leave the internet life, can I keep your FGO account? No. Middle of Nevada has literally nothing for 300 miles in all directions. Oh, I wouldn't go live in Nevada. That just sounds awful. At least, like, I guess it depends on what type of area you're going to in Nevada. Are you going into the mountains or are you going into, like, the desert? Because I do think that makes a big difference. Is it bad that I'm terrible at grail fronts? Yes. I wouldn't say it's the end of the world. Grail fronts just require a certain mentality for how to approach them. Kind of Starlinking for his FGO use now in the wilderness. That would be kind of awesome. Like, not gonna lie. Imagine, chat, like, I basically just lived in the wilderness and lived completely alone and had no one to interact with. And then, like, once every evening after like making my dinner of like baked beans and like ham, I just like decide to get on and stream for y'all. And you guys are my only interaction that I ever have with the outside world. And so unfortunately then I perceive everything through chat's lies. I feel like if I did this though, things would just get really, really bad. Wait a minute. Did I not press the NP button there? Hmm. I don't know if chat's wisdom would be wisdom then. It would be because I would have no other idea to know otherwise. Make it a sub goal, stream from the wilds. In all seriousness, do you know how expensive that is? That would be ridiculously expensive. But you'd always distrust us. True. But I guess to a degree I would have to trust you some, otherwise I wouldn't know what the heck is going on. Space stream when? No, I'm good. I don't need to go to space. I find like sci-fi really cool. I find like, obviously things like Star Wars awesome and like space flight even cooler. I don't think I ever want to go to space. I'm good. Not until we have like foolproof technology that would result in me not getting stranded somewhere deep into the abyss, not knowing what direction to head in or like if I'm going to survive. Who is this servant? My mind is blown. They're so edgy. I'm in love. Well, it's Castoria. It's just I know it's difficult, but like it's Castoria but with a hat. Yeah. Chat's got the right of it. Cattoria. Mm-hmm. Cad Olympus stream win. You mean like LB5 or you mean like you want me to actually travel to Greece? Please, the middle one. Who dat? That's Draco. That's the one we rolled for the other day. Greek travel stream? Chat. So some of you may live in Greece, so I don't wish to offend you, but all I will say is the one time I went to Greece, I did not have a good time. Greece is a beautiful country, has amazing landmarks, but the time I went to Greece was not a good time. And that's all I'll say on that. I think I'm okay. I don't think I need to go back to Greece. You consider beast servants better omni DPS than berserkers? Well, first of all, you mean beast servant, because there aren't multiple yet. And second of all, I mean, yeah, I think like naturally they just don't have the downside that berserkers have, but the upside is berserkers get it, against even the extra classes other than foreigner, whereas Draco does not have advantage against any of the other extra classes. So, how about toga stream? Wait, you mean like wearing like traditional like is it even traditional like Greek wear, chat, or is it just straight up a meme from Hollywood? I actually don't know. I feel like some part of me tells me that like no one ever actually wore a toga. But maybe it was a thing. Togas are for hipster Greeks? That's what I figured. Toga's Roman, from my understanding. I would believe that. I'm getting an ad for House of the Dragon. Mm-hmm. That is appropriate. You have to roll Heracles and get him to level 100 if you want to be cool. But I've already rolled Heracles, and I don't need to get him to 100. Now, if only they'd buffer. Wait, who? The only place I've been outside where I was born was Florida. My condolences. I'm sorry you had to see that. I wish you didn't have to. I wish your only other non-home experience wasn't Florida. I'm doing pretty good, Demon. How are you? Oh, that's 48k. I'm not gonna kill that. Oh no, okay, never mind. Never mind. Animal House, even indeed. Boom, boom, boom. Florida is nice in the winter, at least. I mean, even in the winter, it can still get up to like 90 degrees. It's been raining here today, so it's been kind of nice. Is Sherlock ever worth rolling on? What makes you think he isn't worth? Bro forgot who she was? No, just the prior one I barely managed to kill, but it was after my buffs had fallen off. But I do think what I'm going to do right here is just to be on the safe side, since we're dealing with about 62k. Just pop the actual attack buffs. Easily going to kill the middle. But you can see, with the Buster card, she's carding for roughly like over 100k, so I should be fine. Do Sherlock for the CQ, yeah. Shishou's buff gives me hope for Artemis. No. No. The lowest average temperature in Florida is like 80. I believe that. Like, we definitely have times where it gets down into the 30s here. It's just like they are rare. They forgot Artemis existed. Probably, unfortunately. Any chance they'll fix the low stars? I mean, there's always a chance. It's just like I think everyone should kind of decide for themselves how bullish they are on like the devs changing their tune with regards to strengthenings. Because chat, the list of new units coming out is ever expanding. Right? Like we just keep getting more. But we basically are not going to get more strengthenings, it seems. We are just going to keep getting the same amount that we always have. Artemis buff was Super Orion unironically. Right. And I think, like, God, that sucks. That, like, we've had to take that mentality about things. God. Is this AI? Piccolo and Gohan? This doesn't even sound like Piccolo to me. Like, it doesn't sound bad. It just doesn't sound like Piccolo. Kat, I was wondering if I should go for Arcuid. I have NP3 planning to go NP5. Oh, Space Ishtar. That's up to you, right? Like, Arcuid's a really nice unit, but you do not have to have her. If you already have a really strong Space Ishtar, I'm going to say that, like, yeah, you get some benefit out of having Arcueid, but it's not a huge one. Like, I think more what Arcueid would do for you at that point would be provide some of the intangible stuff that she does. Like, with regards to her ability to, like, charge other units and set them up with Millennium Castle Battlefield. What are the chances of having to hit pity? They're actually pretty low, but it's still, something that can happen. I don't know off the top of my head. I have seen the numbers before, though. The topic of Draco, what makes her so great? Is it just her class? Um, I mean, you're getting a live demonstration as I'm using a single target to do nodes, but part of that's due to damage bonus and such. But as you guys can see, she's basically just effective against the 7 base classes, which is just strong. And she just kind of is a very how do I put this, like, consistent unit. Pokey, thank you for the gift to fighting. Appreciate it. Check, can we get some love for Pokey? Yeah, throw in some CAD gifts in there. All right, did I get stunned? No, I got slapped. Disgusting. We're gonna go like that. We're gonna take the triple chain, which is great that I actually had that. Okay, so I probably got like one more turn. Hmm. I don't really want her to get all of her turns. We're gonna just try to card her some here. If we get the lucky Buster crit, I'll probably pop the bar, and I did. Now she's also considered Roman. NP seal and charm unremovable. What the hell, game? 3 turns. Oh. Okay. Nothing I can do. Yeah, I saw someone say that they thought that the Shishou buff was because of Super Dantes. I don't think it is. Like, it's not that Super Dantes doesn't, like, put some like, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like put some pressure on that. It's more that, like, I believe more than anything, the big reason that Shishou got buffed is because Shishou had a banner last year that I don't think anyone rolled on. I don't think anyone cared. Basically, because she was. I'm sorry. What? I'm gonna beat you to death with an eggplant. Okay. I just did not expect that. And I could have scuffed and gone back and put my guts on her, but then inevitably she would have, like, crit someone else. Hmm. Okay. Do it like that. Shishou banner probably sold like hot garbage last year. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, sorry, thank you for finishing my thought. But 100%, I believe that to be the case. So they knew they wanted to bring her back. They knew they wanted to give her another banner. And they went and said, fuck, it did not work well last time. I know, let's give her a buff. And that's smart. It's actually been what I've been saying they should do all the time. I can't think of a better time to buff a unit than giving a unit a banner. Usually they're getting a banner because they're involved anyways. So if you're going to give them a banner, it might be time to actually take a look at them and say, hey, why don't we actually go ahead and buff them? That might be an idea. Hmm. There we go. Because I invested in her append and P charge. I mean, it'd be what it be. But yeah, no, like, I love Shishou. It's just, I really feel like a ton of people had Shishou already. So basically, we were so deep into the game that everyone that wanted her already had her. Those that didn't want her either because they just were never going to roll for her or because they didn't think she was good. And so they aired the banner. They didn't give her an upgrade, even though she was in, I'm going to say, a precarious spot. And they basically, you know, the resulting effect was that I just don't think anyone rolled. And what I mean when I say this, chat, is I remember talking about it last year. I remember quite literally, like, nobody mentioning that they were rolling. Nobody talking about it. Like, anywhere. Twitter, Reddit, Discord. I didn't really see anybody that said that they were. And like, it's nothing personal against her or anything like that. I actually really like Shishou. I'm saying this purely because I do believe that to have been the case. That essentially it was probably one of their worst banners for her ever. Azok, thank you for the follow. You got Nightingale, Mordred, Jack, Lulter, Nero left. I wonder if we'll see a buff for someone like Jack here next. I hope so. Like, in all seriousness, we're at the point they really just need to start bringing more of the units, quote unquote, back online. And if they do that, they'll be okay. If they don't do that, there are going to be problems. Let's do that. Give me that mighty chain. Yeah, people call Shishou because it's just easier to say. There's no deliberation or debate over how it's pronounced. And so we're just referring to her also as Ku does, which is Shishou, and Shishou just means teacher. If I remember correctly, you don't remember correctly. And the reason I say this, chat, is because it is debated how you actually say it correctly. So no matter how you say it, someone will tell you you're saying it wrong. And that's exactly why everyone has just adopted calling her Shishou. They could release a buff every week for a year and still not touch half the servants who need one. Yeah, I mean, again, you're only going to get a buff every week for a year is you get 52 buffs. That's definitely not enough. I would argue basically over half the roster needs an upgrade of some sort right now. Beast on beast action. I don't remember if I had to do something special for this fight. You will always be wrong. Yes. AK has the right of it. AK understands. No matter what you say, you were wrong. Do you think they will finally add Draco to a GSSR? After this? Yeah, probably. I don't know why, but they seemingly were like really holding on to her for some reason. Oh, this isn't the final fight. Okay. Hello, Azure. How's it going? Built a multi on her on my first Thanksgiving and got her on Rainbow Sparks. That was sweet. Nice. You think she'll still be missing? I mean, and maybe she does, right? And I'm just going to say again, if you want Draco, you needed to roll at that point. But it is what it is. I feel like now that she has two banners, they really don't have a reason to hold it back. But maybe. How long do you think FGO will last as a game? I really think that depends because I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna say this. I think people will continue to play the game as long as it continues to release story, no matter what. Okay. But I do believe FGO is at a point in its life where it has been around long enough that if the devs truly step in it, if they do something they absolutely should not do, and it pisses everyone off, I'm going to tell you, you will only have the avid story readers left, as a ton of people will probably just say no thanks at that point. But I don't feel like FGO is headed for that point because I feel like for better or worse, well, FGO may, not be doing some of the things we want them to. The upside is that FGO also just, doesn't do a lot of things. So it doesn't sit there and constantly make these wide sweeping changes that are objectionable. So usually it's okay. And occasionally we get like some new system or something that we maybe don't think works that well, but that's usually the limit to it. Like I don't really see them actually like, pissing off and imploding the game. Geronimo buffed will introduce the extra meta. I don't think we'll ever have an extra meta. As long as they don't crash the boat into an iceberg, FGO can go on for 20 years plus easily. Oh, I think a lot of it actually boils down to whether or not you see yourself, continuing with the game long term, and whether or not you foresee Nasu continuing to write story for the game. I believe as long as Nasu is invested in FGO, FGO will continue to go about its ways. I feel like where FGO will finally die is when Nasu has decided, you know what, I've had enough of this shit, and pulls the plug. That's when the game will die. Because when Nasu pulls the plug, there's no more story probably coming out, and when there's no more story coming out, I think this game will just naturally die off. Because the big reason that people are still here is because they love the Fate lore and they want to see where it goes, where it heads. I think the chance of them adding PvP is basically zero. I agree with that statement. The reason why, in case anyone is curious, why I think that'll be the case, is because, chat, they teased PvP. They said it was something they were looking into and they wanted to do it. And we literally never heard of it ever again, including at the next anniversary. And the reason I suspect they didn't is because I'm pretty sure in the survey that they did after that interview, everybody and their brother shat on them for it. I think everybody said, no, don't do it. You can't do it. This game is made for PvE. It is not made for PvP. If you try to do that, I'm gone. And I think that was they saw the writing on the wall and they realized it was too risky. And I think they just dumped the idea. Either that or maybe internally they looked at it themselves and thought this is just too much. But either way, we never have heard about it since the initial mentioning. And it's funny because we have had the anniversary interviewers bring up old things that got talked about before. That one did not get brought up. So something tells me they're like, nope, it's not a thing anymore. We're not doing it. Don't ever ask us about it. Like, because I think again, they know it is something that is a hot button issue. Yeah, and basically arcade is meant to be that anyways. I do agree with that sentiment. Come here. There we go. PvP exists, it's fighting everyone else for raid kills. Not even really, right? Unless Lusengo goes full MiHoYo and abandons FGO entirely for FGO2. Yeah, and I don't think that'll necessarily be the case. Chat, as much as I would like to think that behind the scenes, that Lusengo is probably sitting there working on more for this game. All signs seem to point to there's not like some big thing going on behind the scenes that they're actually working on. There's not like all these other side projects that they're actually doing. I think it is just straight up that they are having issues. And that's what I'm saying. Like almost every sign seems to point to that. So I really don't see like, oh, suddenly FGO2 coming out of the woodwork. It could always be a thing, but I'm gonna say if they're doing it, they're doing a world-class job of disguising it. Because instead what it looks like is everything's on fire and they're running around like crazy, swinging from the chandeliers, rather than hey, yeah, we were low-key secretly working on FGO2 all this time, right? But I don't think that's the case. By Studio BB? Yeah, maybe, right? Okay, I gotta get the next mission done, which I have no idea what mission 19 is. Gonna assume it's this node, and I'm gonna keep doing it. Actually, what does this node drop? I should have looked before I went in. So it looks like I need bronze now. Okay. Maybe in 10 years, okay. Yeah, I mean, I would love it, right? Then we'll try to keep it afloat and fail. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say if you ever hear that like Nasu is quote unquote departing from the project, I'm not gonna say quit the game, but that is a huge concern, right? He would have to say like, look, I'm quitting, but they're still gonna like keep the story going. And here's how, like, it's gonna still be all the same writers that have been writing for the game. They just are not gonna need my supervision anymore, or something like that. And I still think that's a huge warning sign. So, and I'm gonna be honest, I like that's the sort of thing I don't even really want to think about, because I feel like that's the worst case scenario. At that point, I would rather Nasu just actually pulled the plug rather than let the chicken run around with its head cut off. I feel like JP is pulling in huge stacks of cash too much for Lusengo to ignore. Oh, I completely agree. But again, I've talked about this. How much of the money is actually getting reinvested back into Lusengo? And I think this is the big question everyone needs to like know the answer to. We don't have that answer, and until we actually hear that answer for starters, like I think we will just never know how things are working behind the scenes. Be like mention coins and fixing it. Yeah, I mean, again, I hope they actually do fix coins, but it's been a thing. We kind of know. He is busting out George R. R. Martin levels of insanity, and it's kind of inspiring. Vomiting ideas onto paper, no matter how ludicrous, unless single is just reading them all and going LOL bet. I mean, I definitely say he's at least similar to George R. R. Martin in one of the ways. I think Nasu is a fantastic writer. I think he is definitely somebody that has the capability of writing about very complex topics and making it, to a degree seem easy. That being said, I actually saw this, I think it's like a week or two ago, where I saw somebody asking which game has the best story in all of gacha gaming. Now, I'm going to say people are naturally going to have their biases in an argument like this, but basically the two that I kept seeing get mentioned were Arknights and FGO. And it seemed to be the consensus that FGO had the better story, but the problem with FGO is that FGO is just super convoluted. And I 100% agree with that. I feel like there are so many like big brain ideas in FGO, and you don't really get a like roundtable discussion from Nasu and his writing staff as to like what all of this means and why, that I think your average person gets lost. Your average person can't comprehend all the stuff that's going on. And so they get, the majority of it. It's not that they can't understand it. It's that sometimes they're not sure why or how something happened. If you have full bias, yeah. But so it's like, I 100% think that Nas is a great writer and that he cooks. I'm just, you guys already know this. I've said this numerous times in the stream before. I'm just not delusional, and I realize that Nasu is human, and I do believe he has some issues sometimes. And they may not be him, right? It may be the case of like maybe the writer under him, and it wasn't caught in edit or in post, basically. But there are definite times that I see some issues. Now, they may be personal issues, but they may be, again, caused by someone else. I don't know. I just see issues in FGO's story from time to time. And that's why I say, like, I'm not under the delusion that I think Nasu's a perfect guy. It's just one of those deals where I think he's very good. I think he's very talented. I think he's one of the best writers I've ever, like, read his work of, right? But I don't think he's infallible. I don't sit there and praise him as if he's God or something like that. And I do see a lot of people that sort of treat him that way. Told Nasu to stop saying it because it's bad for business over and over again. Yeah, I mean, I think they will. I think you'll hear him mention it again. It's just it's largely like downplayed a little bit more now. Kinesu, hello, how's it going? Genshin's story is pretty good, but it's rather simplistic. Yeah, I'm not gonna sit there and like shit on other gacha games and say their stories are bad across the board. I have definitely gotten vibes from some of the stories that I thought were pretty oof. Like, for instance, I think it was like, what was it? The big 1.5 update for Genshin was one of the ones that a lot of people were like raving about. And I actually hated it. I thought the story was atrocious, and I thought it was full of plot holes and plot convenience. So there's definite times that I think like this sort of thing occurs, and your average person thinks it's the greatest thing ever. Whereas people that are maybe a little bit more used to like reading literary works and stuff go like, wait, hold on, how the hell did that happen? So I also think there's just in general a like level of bandwagoning that happens with all these gacha games. If it's your favorite gacha game, its story is the best of all time, bar none. Why? Because it's your favorite gacha game. And I think that happens with a lot of people. I find FGO the comfiest to read. Arknights is great, but reading it's kind of a pain to me. Yeah, and I mean, like, I haven't played Arknights, so I can't say. I don't know, right? I take people's word for it that the majority of people seem to say that the best story was either FGO or Arknights, and it really seemed to come down to taste. So it's like, at the end of the day, I'm like, well, good. I guess that means that everyone believes that the story is good in FGO. But what does that mean? How does it affect things? I think it's different for every person. Like, for instance, I can tell you, at least to some degree, I'm not really a huge fan of the whole Lost Belt arc. I think I actually preferred the story for part 1 as opposed to the story for part 2. Just thematically, right? I still like the story for part 2. There's still things that I find really interesting for part 2, but I think the story is very convoluted. And I do see why people say that about FGO's story. About 1.5. 1.5 is a little bit more in between. It's a little bit more anecdotal and episodic. I think each one of the 1.5 singularities are their own contained thing, not necessarily connected to the whole. Like, they are, but they aren't. That's why you can do them in any order. It's why they're not required to do anything else. I do like 1.5 story. It's difficult to say because it's just, to me, like, so segmented and brief. Oh, look at Tana. Yeah, like, I don't have any bad feelings about the Epic of Remnant stories, if that's what you guys are asking. In fact, some of them I do think are actually really good. But it's difficult for me to, like, sit there and try to compare it to part 1 or part 2, because to me it's just too small in comparison to them. What I don't like about Nasu is he puts a rule of cool above narrative consistency way too much for my liking. I'm not sure he necessarily does. Like, I feel like there's definitely some rule of cool moments that he puts in there, but I feel like the majority of what he's trying to do is head for a certain plot point and do everything to that effect. I think the biggest issue that I have with Nasu is more that Nasu can get overly complex without enough, like, foreshadowing or hints for your average person. And then on top of that, Nasu has a sort of, I'm trying to figure out what the term for this is. And I think it's more like, basically, it's sort of like absolute perspective way of writing. So what do I mean by that? I mean, like, if you go back to, like, the Fate Stay Night visual novel, you'll see a line early in the novel where Shiro is looking at Saber as she is fighting Berserker. And Shiro goes basically something to the equivalent of, I saw Saber die. Like, he states it with affirmation, with confidence, not like in the sense of he's happy about it, but just like superb certainty that he watched Saber die. And then in the very next line, once you're out of his head, you find out that Saber's just actually still alive. First person omniscient? I don't even really think you could call it something like that, because it's not omniscient. That is to say, Shiro absolutely thought that he saw that. He was just wrong. Like, and that's the whole thing, is you're seeing it through the lens of that character, and you're seeing and believing what that character believes. It's just, it may or may not be true. And so it's a really interesting way to write. And there are times that I really like it, and there are times where I really don't like it. It's very hit or miss for me. It's what he thinks he saw, not what actually happened. Right. That's what I'm saying. You're getting it from his perspective, but it is actually told from his perspective with a sense of certainty. And, like, that's not the only time that it happens. It's not just Shiro that does it either. This happens all the time from numerous other characters. That's how Rin feeds you wrong stuff about the Grail War the entire novel? No, okay, so I've seen people say that. I disagree with that. And the reason why I disagree with that, chat. Rin is held up at the very beginning of the visual novel as the talented one, the sort of savant for her age. She is the one that actually knows what's going on because she was the proper mage that was actually taught. Now, she's still young. There's still stuff that she hasn't experienced, but Rin is basically who you are told is sort of, again, going to be your mentor, the person that's actually correct in all of these things. And I think for the majority of what Rin says, it does hold true through the Fate Stay Night visual novel. The reason that I dispute this claim that Rin is telling you untruthful stuff is because it is only after FGO that most of this gets proven to be quote unquote, sorry, not after FGO, but after Fate Stay Night, that most of this gets proven to quote unquote be untrue. That is to say, it's more like Nasu actually just straight up bent the rules later. Not that he wrote Rin to be incorrect when she was saying what she was saying. Like, it's straight up the fact that a lot of what she's saying is meant to be the truth for Fate Stay Night. And it's really only after the fact that the rules get bent. I don't mind that kind of writing, but I can see how you can not like it. Right, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there's times that I do, and there's times that I don't. Unreliable narrator, then. No. Unreliable narrator is when a narrator is telling you information that is actually incorrect. So, that is to say, Shiro believes the information to be correct. Unreliable narrator is somebody speaking with authority when they have none. It's somebody basically sitting there and spouting nonsense to you. If that makes any sense. Like Oberon. Yes. Actually, a better one is Da Vinci. Da Vinci early on in LB6 is the epitome of an unreliable narrator. She thinks she knows, but the things she's telling you cannot be true. And I pointed that out when we were reading through it. So it's really, really weird in that regard. According to the definition, it can be unintentional. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that, if that was the case. So maybe it is still unreliable narrator in that case. But no, I mean, to me, it still just feels a little bit different because it's not even really narration. It is actually a perspective shift, right? Like you are straight up inside Shiro's head, seeing his thoughts, hearing his thoughts. So there may be some things that are incorrect, but they're incorrect purely because Shiro doesn't understand. Loudly, exactly. Maybe that guy, but is there any reason not to roll the Berserker GSSR with God, Juna, Musashi, and Morgan? You are going to be that guy, because I'm not going to answer that question since we're literally about to go over it. You can judge based off of what we're gonna go over. So I finally got my AP down. I'm sorry, chat. That took a while because I guess I was stuck on story there. You know what? Let's go over Shishou's buff before we do the GSSR because I feel like a lot of people are gonna want to know about that. Oh my god. No, I didn't want the category of Shishou. Jesus, fan. Okay. Let me pull this up on the side because I asked Avalon to run me some numbers. We're not going to do a full-blown review for this one, chat, because y'all should know at this point kind of how Shishou works. I certainly could do a little bit more, but damage numbers didn't change. Nor did refund. So, let's start out with a couple of obvious things here. Shishou, in all of her glory, has kind of always been a strong lancer in FGO. We've known this for a while. She's somebody that, you know, really just set the tone for what a single target lancer should be. because when she came into the game, she was the first SSR single target. And she was good. Like, at least for the time. She had basically a 100% chance to stun with every NP, and she could just lock enemies down. The downside was always the fact that, well, she just basically didn't have the best card performance, particularly with her quick cards. So as you guys can see this, her quick cards have, lower than average hit count. The interesting part about this that I really want to highlight, chat, is in the early days of FGO, most units only had singular hits for their cards. There were some notable exceptions, like Shishou and like Gilgamesh, that had pretty insane hit counts on certain cards. They were the exception to the rule. So in a weird way, this 2-hit quick back in the day still wouldn't have been considered to be that good, but it wouldn't be considered to be that bad either. Oh, sorry. I just saw the song skip. Okay, I was worried this is going to be some meme song. So the big thing I want you guys to understand is, again, the hit counts here are still very good. Especially the arts, especially the Buster. And this is why for a long period of time, people actually will be seen using Buster cards in Shishou's actual, best refund scenario. Part of this is because Shishou only has a 0.71 NP gain rate. Now you might be thinking, well, hold on, that's actually pretty good. The reality is it's really not. And I'm going to give you guys an easy comparison. It's the comparison that I've used whenever I've talked about Shishou before in the past. So we can actually go to Brynhildr. Brynhildr is also another limited SSR. She's got the exact same standard Lancer deck. So what's the difference here? Well, for starters, Bryn is a Buster single target Lancer instead of quick. But the hilarity here is Bryn has not only 0.107 NP gain rate, but Bryn also ends up having a 3-hit quick instead of Shishou's 2. And that's still not the last difference, because there's a pesky little difference right here that actually does matter. That is to say, Bryn has riding A. Shishou, for comparison, has no passive other than magic resistance. She quite literally lacks riding, so she doesn't have the additional extra little bump up of quick card performance. So in a really fucking weird way, Bryn has a better performing quick card than the quick unit does. And that's why I call attention to that. It's not any one singular thing. It's not just the hit count. It's not just the NP gain rate. It's not the lack of riding. It's all three of them combined. That is really the reason why the quick card just performs arguably very underwhelmingly compared to anything else. It can still be good to pop whenever you have Primeval Rune on, but otherwise, outside of that, it's usually not worth it. The good news is we are headed into the realm of Mighty Chain on NA, and that is where Shishou has existed for right now. So using the quick card on Shishou is not, untenable. It's not something you're not going to want to do. Instead, you're going to probably just want to lead with the quick card because of its underperforming values. This does mean things like in a Mighty Chain, some of your best scenarios might actually be to do things like quick Buster Arts instead for the best NP gain, or again for maybe even the best damage, something like quick Arts Buster, and sort of do it that way. And the reality is this will still also not be that different in terms of NP gain, just due to the fact that the Buster card actually does have 6 hits. So it is a really interesting thing nonetheless. But this is also why for a long period in time, like I said, when people actually wanted to NP gain with Shishou, the correct way to do it was Arts Buster Buster. This was actually a better chain than Arts Quick Quick, which is really unheard of. It does happen with a couple of units, but it's very rare. And it's just due to the difference in hit counts and the overall average performance of the quick card being a little bit subpar. Now, part of the problem with this is also the fact that she already got a buff to Primeval Rune. And at the time I looked at the Primeval Rune buff and I said, you know what? This is an okay buff. This actually does help her, but I also pointed out that I thought this buff was missing the mark. Looking back and now having looked at this second upgrade here, I feel absolutely right about that. I think one of the big problems that Shishou has overall is the lack of duration of some of her stuff and this sheer lack of charge that she actually has in her kit. Why does this matter? Because we have other units out there that maybe can be used and, sort of looped with and stuff like that. Part of the big problem is right here. She has a single hit NP, which means, chat, Shishou gonna refund like 1% with her NP. Now, I've been told by Bob that I can tell you guys that Shishou could actually be made to full refund now, as long as you have enough quick up. The amount of quick up in percent that you would need in order to make Shishou full refund is only about 14,000%. You can't hit that number. So I'm just going to say you're not going to full refund, chat. So again, the big thing you guys really want to understand here is because the NP is single hit, because it basically is going to refund like 1%, you cannot count on the NP itself actually contributing in any meaningful way. Okay? And I've talked about this before, the sort of idea of breakpoints in an NP charge. If you could maybe say get to 10%, that might make a difference. But you can't. You can't even get to a break-even point. You are literally going to pretty much always round down. Anytime you're not at a factor of 10, it's usually round down from there. So what does that mean? That means that 1% is as good as 0% for most cases. It is quite literally, it didn't happen. Okay? Now, why does Bob give you pointless information? He didn't. I asked him for that information. I thought it would be useful for chat to know. So the point that I'm going to try to make is that, again, this buff really just missed the mark. Why? Because it needed to straight up just give more charge. And I'm going to be honest with you, it also needed to have multi-turns of quick up. I think this could be a 3-turn, and I think this could have been 50%, and it still would not be the most broken thing in the world. In fact, you would have yet another alternative to the likes of Gotti. So, in a weird way, this would have actually been really nice to have. But I understand why they didn't want to make it something like 50. I would think a much more reasonable amount would have been 30, and that might have helped. But it's pretty clear that at least I was right on this to some degree. Because now today we end up getting the buff to Shishou's third skill. This skill has always been a good skill. It is anti-divine and anti-undead for 1 turn, power mod of base 50% each, but all the way up to 100% each. You can double this up, you can have both, and it is really, 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 really strong. Again, it's a 100% power mod. There are some units that have this. It is usually limited in some scope as to how they manage to have it. So, the biggest issue that we had with this skill is simply that this is all that it did. I've definitely seen some people that were like, oh my god, why can't they 3-turn this skill? And I told people before, I'm like, they really don't need to. Because the majority of the time that you're actually going to use this, actually going to need this, is against the boss enemy, the enemy on the third wave, you name it, right? Like, it's going to be against your high health enemy. You really don't need it to be 3 turns in most circumstances. That being said, if we are dealing with break bar bosses and things like that, yeah, this might actually really come into play. So it certainly would be helpful to have multiple turns. They end up buffing it today, and they end up actually doing just that. They give it 3 turns. In a weird way, they didn't need to. But also, in a good way, I'm happy that she gets this because they already screwed the pooch on the Primeval Rune. Because they didn't give her 3 turns of quick up, they basically had to do it here. What they end up doing now is they end up giving her 3 turns of niche damage. But in a weird way, what I'm going to say is that Shishou low-key actually just needed some sort of help for her base damage. Not necessarily her niche. Her niches have always been strong and have always allowed her to really pop off, but I do feel like she has a ton of competition. We're going to talk about that in a second. So it's an interesting thing to say the least that they actually did give this 3 turns. I've seen a lot of people today saying that this buff is insane, saying that this buff is like crazy good and that it's like, whoa, I can't believe they did this. I am not of that opinion. I do not believe that this buff is crazy good. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys something. I don't believe this buff is actually going to make a huge difference in her overall usage. Where I do think it will matter is in her card performance, not really in her overall usability. I think people will use her, but I think a lot of people had already decided either that they like Shishou and were going to use her, and this will be a nice buff for them, or that they didn't care and that they were devoting all of their energy to someone else. Again, maybe like Melisson, maybe Enkidu, you name it. So in that regard, I don't really think this one moves the needle as much as people thinks it does. Where it's really nice is in one of the key issues that she actually has. And it's what I talked about at the beginning there. It is literally this. This has been an issue for Shishou for a long time. Doubly so since this does not help at all in refund. That's why this buff is going to matter. So, it's going to also grant an on-attack activate buff for 3 times 3 turns that will charge her own NP gauge by 20% when attacking. This is actually very similar to the buff that Satanta just got. The only difference is Satanta gets 5 times 3 turns, which is more, but Satanta is only 10% every time he hits instead of 20%. I will say I do like that this is 20% instead of 10. I think that is really nice for her. I think it's actually what she needs in the face of just how scuffed she became with regards to refund scenarios. Because I'm going to point this out. Even post-buff, Shishou had 20% charge. She refunds 1% off the back of her NP. That's it. We can compare this to other units that maybe have 50% charge. They maybe have good card performance to help them out in the interim. Or heck, maybe they are arts or quick as well, and they manage to end up actually getting some refund back due to having higher hit counts. So it's really weird to see just how low Shishou is. How little she actually had in her kit to help her get to another NP. This was sort of the problem with her, is that she was very much a one and done type of unit. You could absolutely make her NP a second time, but we're talking, hey, you're using things like K-Scope and then double 50% chargers. Getting to a third NP, really, really, really difficult. And that is kind of the issue with her. So, I do think this is an interesting buff for her. And I'm going to talk about why here a little bit more in a second. But I do have another point to make about this. And that is simply this. While I like this buff, while I do think this helps alleviate a big chunk of the problem with Shishou's card performance, I am going to just scream if I see this again. What do I mean? Why the hell are we locking an SSR to 3 times 3 turns? This is shit that we put on the lower star units. This is shit that we use to limit units that we fear are going to be too strong. I think when you actually start thinking about this skill, you realize that 3 times 3 turns is absurdly low. Because, let me point this out to you. This says 20% when attacking. This does not say when normal attacking. And what that means, chat, is that this impacts not just Shishou's cards, but also Shishou's NP. With this buff, Shishou will now actually refund 21%. She'll get that 1%, and she'll get 20% based off of this. So, the funny part about this is, then you have 2 more cards. And basically, it's going to end up being like, I don't know, your Buster cards, your Quick cards, even maybe even your Arts card, okay? And then you're going to have, potentially, because you did 2 other cards, an extra attack. It's already gone before it gets to your extra attack, chat. Now, I'm not going to look the gift horse in the mouth. You got 60 free charge off of that. You want to know what's crazy about this, though? What was it, chat? Point like 9.8 or something? Really like 27? This is sort of like your average performance in that scenario. You're going to end up still not getting back to full. That's the reason I'm pointing this out. It certainly helps address this. With this buff, we can 3-turn with Shishou now. However, it is not super fluid to the point that, like, you're going to get more outside of that initial turn. Because it is only 3 stacks, not even like 5. This is extremely limiting, and it could help you. It also might not. What do I mean by that? Well, let's talk about that. So, basically, with skill 2, she is basically looking at, my God, chat, 2% refund. With this, it becomes 22%. Her Brave Chains, with 2 times Summer Scotty, and her own skill 2 and skill 3, we are looking at NP, Q, Q, E being equal to 80%. Sorry, 81%. Okay, so that's Q, Q, E, NP. With, and again, that's triple quit. So with NP QAE, we are looking at 86%. With NPBA, which is going to be arguably her best, you are looking at 91%. So the point that I'm trying to make here, chat, is they gave her 20% charge on every single attack. And unless you crit with one of those cards, it is still not enough for you to actually get to full. In a weird way, it's a really good buff. It's also so limited because they're so afraid of it that, like, it will help you get to an MP, but that's really it. You maybe, if you manage to get lucky and get crits on the right turn at the right time with the right cards, could Black Grail loop Shishou. It's just not likely to occur. So you're looking instead at Shishou probably being somebody that's, you know, either starting out with a K-scope still, or maybe somebody that's like, hey, now I can start with a 50%. And as long as I get the cards, I'm good. But let me state this. Because this is not just a straight charge buff, and because it is relegated to a buff on attack, this now means that this scenario in which we could get 60% more charge only applies in a circumstance where we either did not kill or we've got break bars. Otherwise, we ain't carding after the NP. We ain't getting more refund to get back to that NP again. And the other downside is, as I mentioned before, Primeval Rune still stuck at 1 turn duration. I'm of the opinion Primeval Rune needs a second buff. Still. So, I don't want to make you guys think that this is a bad upgrade. It's not. It is a good upgrade. It definitely addresses the issue that her carding had, which is that it was not good enough in the face of not having charge, in the face of not having refund. But they still are afraid of this, and they severely limited it. And that's the big thing that I'm trying to point out. Shishou, with this buff, is more usable. She is certainly in a better state than she was before, but she's also not better suddenly than any of the other Lancers out there. And the reason that I'm going to say this is because we can actually take a look at her raw damage here. Okay? This is Shishou, 2x Summer Scotty with Oberon and a level 100 Black Grail. This is just one turn burst damage, chat. Okay, this is just how she's going to stack up ideally in a scenario. At NP1, you're looking at 736k. At NP1 with one of her power mods, 948. And NP1 with both of her power mods, 1.1. NP2, you start getting a much better setup for these numbers. Let's compare this to Bren. Well, here's Bren with double Koyan, Oberon, a level 100 Black Grail. Now remember, this is one shot, so we're actually getting to use Black Grail. The second we start talking about like 3-turning, you might want to throw that Black Grail out. This is not guaranteeable that you're going to 3-turn with Black Grail with Shishou. You're looking at 553, 829 with Loved One. Okay? So certainly at this point, we're not as good, but we're beating NP1 of Shishou. And then basically at NP2, it scales up even better. Now, that's Bren with 2x Coin of Light and Oberon. This is Bren with Coin of Light, Merlin, and Oberon, assuming everything lands, right? You're now at 645, 968. Definitely a lot more palatable, as now you're outright beating one of the power mods. And certainly NP2 is going to make this even stronger over here. So, again, definitely good numbers. We do have Enkidu. Enkidu sitting here just dealing solid damage. Threat against humanity, dumb damage. Absolutely bonkers, gorilla damage. We don't need to see this number. One, because threat against humanity is not a common thing. And two, because, Jesus, what were they smoking? But that's Enkidu, right? Then we get Enkidu with Merlin. And things start to look kind of nasty, right? You start actually realizing just how much we're dealing with here. Here she shows NP1 number. Here is Enkidu's NP1 number. Okay? So it's why I'm saying these are nice upgrades, but they're more like quality of life for Shishou. It helps her usability. It's not going to make people take her more, is the issue at play. Summer Tamamo here. I'm sorry, chat. Please, if you're a Tamamo fan, please don't look. Okay? Y'all know the deal with Summer Tamamo. I'm sorry. It just Summer Tamamo also needs an upgrade. Okay? And this is sort of her best case scenario with Merlin and Oberon and a Black Grail. Okay? And we got Bima. Bima's a lot newer. Bima has the overcharge increase that he has. And again, it certainly is a nice thing, but Bima is a little bit more on the lackluster side as well. And then here is going to be Bima with Merlin and Oberon, sort of his best case scenario. Now, then we also have Melisande as a single target. So this is with Castoria and Black Grail. And the difference here is out of all of these guys, Melisande actually can Black Grail loop. Like, this is not impossible for Melisande to do by any stretch of the imagination. While these might be her, single shot numbers, she might not have that burst power that some of these other Lancers have, especially since they have niches in play. Melisande's just going to keep doing this, and she's going to keep looping better basically every single time. We can also mix in a Tamamo for just overall better damage output. You guys can see, definitely nice. Certainly not necessarily going to be as conductive for refund. And then even 2x Oberon with, 2x Tamamo with Oberon, getting even a little bit more edge. So the reason that I'm pointing this out Is Shishou's damage still really good? Yes. But this is also one-shot damage with a Black Grail. The second we start phasing out Black Grail, these numbers are going to go way down. Okay? Now we can argue, well, they'll also go down for several of these other Buster units, because they won't also be able to touch Black Grail either. That's true. But you've also got that capability of touching that really nice 50% CE, something, you know, akin to like cranking and such, that can be really, really good for them. We don't have basically okay, there we go. Sorry, I just saw that. What we don't have basically is that same sort of like scalability with Shishou, at least not until this buff. This buff finally put Shishou on like, hey, maybe now I can start using 50% Cs. And while that sounds great, it might sound like she's equal, chat. Quick Cs don't exactly have the best analog to something like cranking. So there's that, right? And that is certainly an issue. But if she can card, she can, but otherwise, right. And I think this is sort of the problem, right? So why do I mean like she can't necessarily touch Black Grail? Well, I want you guys to think about this, right? So for starters, you're only getting 1% refund off of every NP. So let's do our table here. Now let's add in the actual charge. Like, let's take an Oberon. You know what? Let's not do 70. Let's do Oberon's 50 and maybe like a missing Scotty 50. That's enough, right, chat? That's 101. So that's enough for the final wave. Let's do I don't know, let's assume we get that 60% off of carding. I guess we use our other 50%. Or you know what? Here's what we do. We use the remaining Oberon 20%, and then we use Shishou's Primeval Rune for another 20%. There we go. That's also 101. Now we're good. Right, chat? Like now we managed it. We did it. And so out of all of that, what we actually end up still having is 50%. Well, maybe you also have the append. We're still 30% shy. The point that I'm pointing out here, chat, could we get that other 30%? Maybe. What do I mean? Let's look at it from the front, going backward. Start out with the append. I don't know. We got to have some way of actually doing this. I think Bob proposed this to me with Nero Bride instead of Oberon. Nero Bride can give the 30. You do one of the Scotty 50% buffs. That's 100% right there for turn 1. You refund like 1%. And what we still have remaining in the tank are a 20% from Shishou herself and a 50% from another Scotty. That's it. We also have potentially up to 60% refund off of Shishou's third skill. So we need 200% more charge. Sorry, 198% more charge. And we know that we are basically going to have the capability of potentially getting 130%. We need 70% more. The thing is, I haven't factored in carding. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to go look at my conversation with Bob earlier. So according to Bob, 2-time Summer Scotty with Nero Bride would let Shishou refund 44 0.55% for NP B A E. This is not including the 60%. So this would actually allow the 3 potential cards here to actually be able to get a decent chunk of refund. So when you start thinking about things that way, we can start out at 20, 30, 50, and then boom, have that first NP. Because again, this is the append. This is near a bride. And basically, this right here is one of the Summer Scotty 50%. From there, as I already said, we know we have Primeval Rune. We know we have 60%. We know we have a missing 50%. Well, if we actually did the chain right off the bat, then we already pretty much know that we're going to get 44% and 60%. That is enough for a full loop. Okay? In the same way that it is right here. Then from there, we have Primeval Rune and a missing 50% from the other Summer Scotty. Okay? What we still need to solve for is 30%. Well, we can probably get it if we can get good NP gain. Here's the problem. 1, you don't have a second arts card. So it's going to make things a little bit more difficult. You might be able to do it with the missing quick cards. But certainly spicy at that point. This is why I'm going to say it's probably going to end up at some weird way where you just actually need a crit. So is it theoretically possible to Black Grail Looper? Yes. What's the problem, chat? Did anyone spy it there? Why is this unlikely to occur? Yeah, it's card RNG. So even if we get the cards, we have to get them pretty much on the exact turns that we need them, in the exact order that we need them. Or else we got to have a crit. Now, if we're using Summer Scotty does actually have it's not going to give it to me. I know it's not. Oh my god, it did. Summer Scotty does at least have a Star Bomb here. Okay? So you can get up to 15 stars. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because, chat, normal Shishou is not generating stars for you. That is a single hit NP. You're not getting a lot out of that. In all reality, you're probably going to get star generation out of the Buster card more than anything. Okay? The reason why I'm saying that is because, again, if you actually come back to look at her, you have 5 cards, and you need them to occur in the right turns. You need to not get 5 of a kind happening on turn 3. It must occur in the first 2 turns. Because turn 1 leading into turn 2 and turn 2 leading into turn 3 are the only ways you're going to get refund. If your cards appear in turn 3, congratulations, you have no refund. All of your buffs fall off in the 3-turn cadence as you use the 3rd turn to actually get enough refund, and you're now in a 4-turn. This is why it's so, precarious to actually try this. So I just highly recommend doing a 50% starting charge C for her. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying you basically need cards, again, early on, and in the right increments that you actually manage to break even. And keep in mind, too, the other downside to all of this is that you're dealing with Scotty, who has block charge. So you're not really able to, break this up into different amounts. The observable Shishou will mean she gets stars? Yes. Yeah, it will. And all I'm trying to say, though, is that, it's still going to be precarious. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying, short of me sitting down and actually, asking Bob or someone to model the carding for us, it's really, going to be inconsistent. It's not something that I recommend relying on. That makes any sense. Right? Can it be done? Yes. Is it going to be something that you should try to aim for? No. No, you should not. Not unless I'll grant you this, chat. Where it'd probably get a lot more consistent is if you're dealing with a boss that hits you a bunch, and because of that, you know you're going to get a shit ton of free charge because she does have 4% charge defense. Okay, if you're dealing with one of those bosses that's just like spamming AoE attacks constantly, might be a thing. Here's the problem with that. You're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. if you catch my drift here. Why Bride over Castoria? So Bride does not care what card type you are. Bride gives attack up, Bride gives extra sky damage, and Bride gives NP gain and charge. 30% charge and 45% NP gain. So what Bride's going to do really well is, one, her 30% charge is going to synergize with that starting 20% for the append so that you don't have any wasted charge. And two, it's actually going to make these cards refund a little bit more. Like when you're using them, you're going to get more charge. Okay. Here's the other issue though, too, chat. And I didn't even say this. Remember how we talked about like she can gain 44% if you do an NP BAE? I want you guys to realize something. This is a mighty chain. This is quick buster arts. So the second we lose that arts card, we no longer have a mighty chain. Which means this lead quick card does not generate any noble phantasm, really. Like, I mean, it didn't to begin with, right? But it also means any buster card you use will not generate any noble phantasm, really, either. And it then means that only the last quick card and extra attack are going to generate anything. Or maybe if you got double quick cards, only the 2 and the extra attack are going to generate anything. So you got to keep that in mind. Mighty Chain does change things like that. It actually allows your starting card, including your NP, to act as if it were an arts card. But the second you take Mighty Chain out, we start losing out. So it's why, like I said, there's just too many things to consider. Too many factors that are going to fuck with you. I'm not going to say you can't do it. I'm just going to say it's going to be difficult to do. All right. Anyways, chat, that's Shishou's buff. Like I said, it's a good buff. It does change things for her. But I'm disappointed in the devs for somewhat limiting it, and she still needs a little bit more, in my opinion. Not in terms of like she needs raw damage, just she needs, I think that Primeval Rune, in my opinion, needs to be expanded to 3 turns. I feel like that is the big reason why a good chunk of her quick performance is just so bad. And I feel like if they actually do that, that will solve a lot of the issues. So. Quick units can't be too good. That's illegal. I mean, right. Because, the boogeyman. The quick boogeyman is coming. Actually, hold on. Let me just close this. Because I think, I was going to say, I think I already had it open from last time. Not for honor, but for you. Snake Eater. Chat, I will be going over the strengthenings on a different day, but I figured let's do the GSSR. Oh, fuck. I should have looked at this before I started to talk about it. All right, so how's this breaking down before I get into video mode? Nope, let's not do it that way. God damn it, it's still the same. I was hoping it'd have a different layout. The GSSR is really big. Yes. Yes, it is. Okay, so let's see. There are 20 pools to choose from. Each pool is categorized by the period that the servants are released and class. And you may only roll in a single pool. Okay. Five-star servants will be a limited servant picked from among the ones in the featured image, matching the banner's classes and period. Four-star servants will be picked from among the specified classes released in the period, including limited and story locked and normal. Yeah, I'm not gonna blame them for. Oh, okay, it's over here. This is my 4 stars. Okay, yeah, because it looks like we've got like 4-year periods. Is why. And then for extra, oh, those cheaters. Those cheaters. Oh my god, they cheated so much. They know what they did. Except for limited servants. Ooh. So then I assume that means you can't get limited on this. Will be picked amongst all classes. Okay. I love 20 pools. Yeah. I mean, in a weird way, it's kind of nice. So we'll go ahead and we'll talk about it, right? Hey guys, my name's Khadroth, and today we're going to be talking to you about your upcoming anniversary GSSR. Usually do a video like this every single year, and I kind of wanted to sit down and break it down with you guys, give you guys my 2 cents on where I thought the, GSSR was going to be a good value for you and where it may or may not be, just depending. I know we have different types of players. We've got veteran players and new players alike. So I'm going to try to talk about some of the considerations overall, but it's definitely something where I'm going to say at the end of the day, the best advice I can give you is to just go with whatever your heart desires. I can break it down for you guys from a gameplay perspective, but the best thing you can try to go after in any GSSR is going to be the unit that you desire most. It's just always kind of been that way. Just remember, it's not guaranteed that you do get that specific unit. There is always sort of the risk of getting someone else. Just take that again into account. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the actual GSSR. You guys can see it is going to be available basically for, over a week, but not necessarily up to 2 weeks. It should be basically available during the entire duration of the actual anniversary banners that are going on and the overall festivities. Now, we do know we're going to be getting anniversary basically July 6th should be the panel at Anime Expo, and so we can expect that it'll probably show up about July 7th. That does mean you should be able to get a GSSR and the Arcuid banner sort of going live at the exact same time. Again, I'm sure I'll be rolling it on that day, and there'll definitely be a lot of things going on. But needless to say, this is definitely something to be considered. Now, do keep in mind that we always have the rule with any GSSR that is to say that you can only use premium currency. What does that mean? If you're a new player, there is a difference between paid Saint Quartz and free Saint Quartz. Free Saint Quartz is Saint Quartz that you gain from playing the game just naturally, whereas paid Saint Quartz is going to be Saint Quartz that you only get from purchasing a pack. That, to be understood, also usually when you purchase a pack, there is both a paid portion and a bonus portion. The bonus portion is going to be considered to be free. So just keep that in mind. If it's 15 quartz, you know that means you need 15 paid quartz, not just 15 total quartz. Again, any quartz you gain from playing the game, login bonuses, again, milestones, or maybe just bonding units up, that is all considered to be free, not paid. Let's also talk about the actual GSSR breakdown and how it's going to work this year. There's going to be 20 different pools to choose from, so there's going to be a lot to go over. I'm going to try to give you guys, again, a little bit of my perspective on some of the units. And essentially, we're going to try to move through it fairly quickly. So obviously, if I do have a servant analysis out and you want a deeper dive, feel free to check that out on any individual unit. But certainly, this is definitely going to be a case of we're just going to have to kind of give you a little bit of a surface level analysis on each one of these. Now, within these 20 pools, you can only roll a single one. That is to say, you must choose one pool out of the 20. You cannot roll all 20. I wish that were the case. I'm sure plenty of people do, but you only get one choice. You got to make it count. Now, in that pool, basically the main attraction is going to be your 5-star servants. Each one of them is going to be a limited servant. However, you will see that it is striated. It is broken up into essentially a time period and a class. You're going to see, again, units that were released during a time period. For instance, say all the casters released within this 4-year span will be on one of these pools. Then you're going to see also accompanying units, which are going to be the 4 and 3-star units alongside. But in this regard, 4-star servants are also going to be picked from the specified class that you choose. So if you're choosing casters, you'll only get 4-star casters in that. However, there are going to be at least some exceptions with regards to the extra classes, and that's because they didn't necessarily release, a ton of 4-star extra classes. And basically, it's going to include limited and story locked as well as normal 4-stars that were available during that period. However, with the 3-stars, it's going to basically be servants that were picked from among the specified classes except for limited. That is to say, you cannot get the limited 3-stars on this GSSR. In the case of the extra classes, because of this, because pretty much all of your 3-stars prior available to date are essentially going to be limited, you are, instead of getting 3-star extra classes, going to just get 3-stars of all classes that can show up. So just keep that in mind. If maybe, one of your sort of tertiary or secondary goals was going to be to try and acquire, some lucrative 3-star that you hadn't seen hide nor hair of. Again, the big focus of the GSSR is going to be your 5-stars. And like I said, you can only use the premium currency to pull here. Just keep that in mind. So let's go over the 20 different pools that there are to choose from. So again, this is going to be our 7th anniversary lucky bag. You're basically going to end up with the first one here being the 2015 through 2018. Keep in mind these dates are going to be shifted by about 2 years for NA, because again, we are 2 years behind the JP server, and this is sort of where I'm looking at. So this will basically be July 30th of 2017 to July 29th of 2020 for NA is going to be what this pool will be. But regardless, you don't really care too much about the timing of it so much as the units that are actually available on it. In this pool, we obviously have some nice sabers. I certainly can say that someone like Arthur at this point is maybe a little bit behind the times. He certainly could use an upgrade, so I don't really think he's necessarily going to be really anyone's first choice unless you're just a King Arthur simp, and that's a-okay if you are. But we do have someone like Okita. Okita still performs very well to this day. She is a single target quick saber, but she does have really good card performance, so I do think she could be a very valuable pickup. She also has that defense pierce, so it's really, really nice for her. And then we do also end up having someone like Sigurd. Now, a lot of people have said that they find Sigurd's NP damage to still be somewhat lackluster, but I'm going to say part of the reason for this is because, one, his analog in Siegfried is actually a really solid anti-dragon damage dealer, but also due to the fact that Sigurd himself just has extremely high attack power and really high crit percentage with a 100% crit skill. So really, again, don't look too much at just the NP damage on him. He's got a lot of stuff to still offer. Nira Bride is, I'm going to say, arguably the best pickup here because, again, if you're someone that's newer and you don't have her, or maybe you're even a veteran and she was just sort of this other sort of flexible / support unit that you didn't have, she could still be a really, really good option for you to pick up because she is just sort of another support option. You can still use her as a damage dealer. She has had a ton of buffs, so her damage is actually still really good, but I can definitely say that Nero Bride is going to be one of those units that I think a lot of people should have in their roster just because of how flexibly she can be used as either a support or a damage dealer. We also end up having Musashi here. Musashi is just still sort of the single target damage king. She's single target buster. She's really, really solid in terms of her overall performance. And again, I do highly recommend picking one of her up, as she also now has the NP interlude that allows her to deal extra damage to Alter Ego and Moon Cancers. And then we do have Saber Shiki, and a lot of people, I think, wrote Saber Shiki off over the years. She has Death Proc, she's got a single hit NP, but she actually is somebody that can Black Grail loop now on JP. I know that sounds really weird to hear. She's AoE, she's arts. I do think that she is in a much better spot than she used to be, and she is certainly a very valuable unit because of that. Now, for consideration, our 4 stars here, we do have Salter, who's story locked. We also have Gawain himself, who's story locked. Sumanai is still a really good pickup. He actually just got an upgrade on NA here. The rest of these, out of this, I can certainly say Nero is also story locked, and Yagyu is also story locked. But pretty much everybody else here, it's going to be, if you desire them, good for you. But there may be not special considerations for like units that you would hope to get out of this. Next up, we have basically the next grouping of sabers here that come after that. We've got Astolfo Saber, and while I still think Astolfo Saber can be used effectively, I'm going to say Astolfo Saber at this point in time probably is, you know, feeling a little bit of the pressure of the Musashis out there with the insane damage they're doing, or maybe even the Okitas, who have had decent upgrades to sort of keep pace and yet still have really good card performance. So I'm not going to say Astolfo's bad, just that Astolfo is going to be one of those things where if you want Astolfo, you know why you want him, and it's a-okay if you do. Next up here, we have Ibuki. Ibuki is going to be somebody that I feel like has performed well down the stretch, especially due to the new Buster system that has come out. She is certainly somebody that received a little bit of a renaissance thanks to that. And again, Tunguska, she's really good. She's got Invuln Pierce. She's anti-undead, and she just hits like a Mack truck. So she's a solid AoE Buster option for you. Oki-Tan Saber is actually a limited summer unit as well, so she doesn't necessarily get that many banners. But the one thing I really find useful about her is she is a Black Grail quick AoE Saber, so that's somewhat rare. We do have Charlemagne, who's also available right here, that is sort of her analog. Again, as for which one's better, it's totally up to you. They both do about the exact same in terms of their performance, so it's again just a preference sort of deal. Muramasa is right here, and he has still kind of been the gold standard for arts loopers. While Shiki actually can out-damage him now, Muramasa still at least has a lot of utility. He's got Invuln Pierce, Defense Pierce, and 50% charge. He's AoE arts, and you know that's going to be useful. He's a solid looper and very good farmer, as well as anti-challenge quest type of unit. We do also have the Trung Sisters here, and the Trung Sisters are, again, sort of a pseudo-support as well. They can be your single-target damage dealer, and you really shouldn't discount their damage upon hearing that they're a support. They actually do a ton still, and they are very solid at actually keeping the party healed and sort of keeping it all going. So they're really good, especially since they're single-target arts, because they can be paired with Castoria and provide basically that extra little bit of healing that Castoria would normally lack. We have Benny Inma here as well. Benny Inma is always going to have that special spot for being anti-evil and chaotic, and just also having buff success chance in her kit. So she can be, buff removal resistance in her kit. So she can be really solid for you for preventing the entire party from getting buff stripped and murdered by someone like, say, Amakusa or something like that. Anyone that, you know, you'd be facing that actually has buff removal, Benny Inma is going to hard counter them. So again, Benny Inma can be a really solid pickup. As for our 4 stars over here, we end up having Tomoe Saber, who is a limited, obviously. We have Bageko, aka Barghest, who is going to be a story-locked unit in and of herself. And again, we definitely have other story-locked units, but I'm going to say these two are probably one of the bigger attractions. Multiple units here can be good. Lan Ling does have some supportive capabilities. And again, I'm going to just go ahead and say that the 4 stars are going to be very much a potluck anyways. Next up here, we're dealing with the archers. Now, basically, Squirtoria has come a long way. She is a very solid single target option. She is still arguably the best looper in the game, even though she is kind of like a year one, year two-ish unit, since she falls right on that divider line. She has gotten charge in her kit, which is really, really just nutty for her to have. Her damage is really the only way in which she is lacking. But ultimately, at the end of the day, her refundability and the ability to drain enemies with her NP, and the fact that she can kind of just keep looping and keep doing that, makes her an excellent boss killing unit and someone that can just really deprive an enemy of actually having an NP. Ishtar is certainly still in a good spot on JP. I have seen people calling for her to get an upgrade, but really that's just because Gil actually got an upgrade and is just absolutely bonkers. Ishtar is still going to be solid across the board, though her damage is just nutty even still, and she definitely is going to be a really solid choice as a 50% charging AoE buster unit. The only thing she doesn't have is niche damage, but she also doesn't necessarily really need it. She's just solid. Then we have Gil, and the reason that Gil is considered to be so cracked at this point is because he's received numerous upgrades over the years, and his niche is servants. That is to say, Gil just pretty much deals extra damage to all servants in the game. The only exceptions being people that are, resistant to Enema Elish, and they are very few and far between, so much to the point that it's easier to count how many people are resistant to it rather than the actual people that, it's effective against. So again, Gil is a very, very solid AoE buster archer. He's 30% charge. You can absolutely 3-turn with him. And yes, he is a very, very good unit in that regard. Then we have Moriarty as a single target option here. He does at least have Invuln Pierce. He has 50% charge. And he is single target buster, so you're going to have that Koyensky and Oberon synergy. He's not a bad unit by any means, but I do feel like overall, most of the single target archers could use some sort of bump up in terms of damage. Still, he can provide some nice stuff for the party in terms of turning them evil, which may confer other benefits for you. So I do think Moriarty can at least be a solid pickup for people that maybe need a charging unit in their single target archer. As for the 4-stars here, definitely the rarest amongst these is going to be Fujino. She is a unit that a lot of people had a hard time getting on JP. NA kind of had an easier time since we got an extra banner that JP didn't get. And we do also have units like Demia that are story locked here, and even, say, the Yuri pirates that are maybe not coming around too often. We also got Tristan down here. So again, definitely some solid options, and even sort of Chiron if you want sort of a pseudo support type of unit again. Next up, for the next set of archers here, we've got Jarcher. Now, Jarcher is somebody that I think, at least damage-wise, has fallen behind considerably to the likes of Durga. We do also have Zenobia out there as a 4-star, and interestingly enough, she is on the same pairing right here. But I will say that Jarcher still does really solid work. She is also just a very fluid looper, one of the better ones in the game in that regard. So she is sort of an easy unit to rectify the damage issue with, since you can pretty much just always run around with her having like a Black Grail on. You might not want to have to do that in events, but again, damage output should be easily remediable in her case. She is still a very solid AoE arts archer for most people. Sei Shonagon has actually gotten some love, and I am going to say that she is in a better state than she used to be. She is now a little bit more usable in a farming capacity than she used to be. You certainly had to brute force her in the past. Now you have to brute force her, but just a little bit less. And again, she is still a solid option, as well as somebody that's going to be really good for challenge content due to the fact that she has 3 different niches that she can apply for extra damage against an enemy. So I do recommend checking her out. She is AoE quick, but again, maybe that's something you want, or maybe not. We do end up having, obviously, Super Orion here as well. I all the time have people that tell me that Super Orion is a single target archer, to which I counter with Super Orion just punches people. That is to say, he hits incredibly hard, he crits incredibly hard, but really his NP is actually a support NP meant to be self-buffing. So at the end of the day, to me, he's a carding and crit-oriented unit. He is very strong. Don't let that make you think that he's not. He's a really good pickup if you do not have him. So again, he is someone that can absolutely be a buster nightmare for people. And again, with regards to our 4 stars, we certainly have someone like Zenobia who can be an arts AoE looper for you. You do also end up having units like Balbon Sith who are story locked, and again, at least got a very decent both boss killing and challenge oriented kit here. Next up, we also end up having somebody for the Lancers here, and basically we ended up actually just talking about Shishou's buff. She is certainly it's a good buff. It's putting her in an interesting place. She is not, I'm going to say, stood out from the pack really, but she is still a very, very solid single target option with her being single target quick. She can stun enemies every single time she NPs, and she's anti-divine and undead with her actual niches. So again, she could be a very quality pickup for you. We do have Erish. Erish is going to be an AoE buster unit. Erish started out more as a challenge-oriented unit that was relatively low on damage, but she has had an NP interlude that helped that out, especially because it gave her super effective damage against the Earth niche. So definitely a nice upgrade for her. It has made her a lot more usable overall for not just farming, but also challenge scenarios. And again, every single time she NPs, you're going to be getting more attack up, not just for her, but also for the party. So again, she could be a really solid pickup for your AoE Lancer. We do have Tamamo Lancer here, and Tamamo Lancer is going to be somebody that I think for a long period of time, maybe her performance was considered to be somewhat subpar, at least in terms of general overall like boss killing damage. Certainly, she does have good card performance overall, and she has had a nice buff to her 3rd skill that alleviated a lot of the issues with it. She now has a 30% charge, which means you can 3-turn with her, so I think she's in a much better state than she used to be, but she is still a little bit lacking in the overall one-shot damage department. Instead, though, we also have Bryn here, who is also a single target buster option. She's also a 30% charger, and she does have the Brynhilder's Beloved niche that really helps her, you know, sort of cement her state in or sort of her place in the overall Lancer pantheon here of units that you might want to have. She is very, very good because of that synergy with the other buster supports, and again, that Brynhilder's Beloved niche for her is super wide, so it's a really, really good one to have. With regards to our 4 stars, we definitely have someone like Lalter, who's a very rare unit on banners. Certainly a story locked unit at that, so definitely not an easy one to get. We also have, ironically enough, someone down here like basically Mama Lancer, Mama Raiko. And Raiko Lancer is actually really, really solid because she's also one of those units, sort of like Nero Bride that we were talking about before, where she has, again, that capability to be both a single target damage dealer, but also somebody that maybe can buff another unit in the party. She's got essentially charisma for the party. She's got a targetable 3-turn buster buff that can also cleanse. So it's definitely a strong kit for that. She's got to be careful because she doesn't have overall a bunch of survivability. And again, a lot of these options that I'm not mentioning are still solid, so don't feel bad if you actually manage to get them. I'm just kind of trying to point out maybe some of the like clear and like big gets from this. Next up here for our Lancers, they're all going to be AoE Lancers. To start off with, we got Sakamoto Ryoma. He's a 50% charging AoE Arts Lancer. His refund is not huge, but he is still a Black Grail Looper, so you don't really have to be concerned with it. That is why he has 50% charge. So again, he is a solid option, but obviously we've got sort of an elephant in the room type situation here, where Melisson is sort of the standout. And the reason why is going to be because Melisson is a both a single target arts lancer as well as an AoE buster lancer. She is sort of a buy one get one free type of deal. And again, for that reason, you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck if you manage to actually land her here. This is definitely going to make her a really, really solid get for people that don't have her, as she can kind of be the lancer that you just rely on for so many things. Her damage is certainly undeniable, especially if you have the right supporting cast around her. If you got Double Koyansky and Oberon, her damage can just be absolutely nutty. She's a buster AoE unit in that regard, but she can still be a Black Grail option. So again, she can do a ton of damage if you actually manage to set her up properly. And then from right here, we also have Roma, and Roma's actually no slouch. He's basically second behind Melisson in terms of AoE damage. So he is still really, really good. He's a 30% charging AoE buster unit, but he's not going to be someone that's necessarily going to touch things like Black Grail. So that is going to limit his overall capability. But he does have the Roman niche, and he can confer it basically to enemies and allies both. So he's definitely a really, really solid pickup, especially if you need an AoE Lancer. With regards to our 4-stars here, we do have an option like Canis, who is also going to be story luck. We do have an option like Percival, and I'm going to say that Percival is actually probably one of the strongest gets here, because he is a permanent unit, but he's also somebody that is an arts looper, does solid damage, and is actually a pretty decent tanky unit as well. So you can use him in challenge environments, you can use him in general farming. He's just a really solid sort of like, again, late game type of kit that has been brought into the game as it has aged, that is definitely showing that he can kind of stand up. So next up here, we've got the Riders. For the first one here, we've got Maid Altar. Maid Altar is certainly I'm going to say the epitome of where Quick is right now, which is that Maid Altar does not really have any charge in her kit. You're going to have to brute force her or rely on like crits with her cards for her to actually be able to sit here and loop. That being said, her damage is undeniable. She is only really surpassed by Ozzy at this point in time, who has had an NP interlude. So it is still very, very solid in terms of overall damage. You can actually double up her third skill for reloading memes and actually allow that to pop off even harder. And again, her star generation and MP generation from her cards is not bad. It's just, again, she does not actually have any sort of real survivability or any sort of actual charge in her kit. Next up here, we've got Ivan. Ivan is sort of, he used to be kind of the poor man's Iskandar, and now he is actually the, you look at me, I'm the captain now. That is to say, Ivan is a 30% charger unit that can be allowed to 3-turn because of that. He does have the ability to buff strip his enemies, which definitely makes him invaluable. So he is a very hard-hitting AoE buster rider. That is in comparison to his compatriot here, Iskandar, who has no charge, really, so to speak. He basically has had an upgrade. A lot of his buffs are going to be multi-turn duration and are actually really, really solid for him as he covers all 3 basic buff types, both card type up, attack up, and also, again, NP damage, all in his actual kit. So offensively, Iskandar hits very hard. The problem is you really can't 3-turn with him, and you're going to have to sit there and actually use things like K-Scope and stuff to make him pop off a little bit. So it definitely can impact his overall damage performance. He's not in the best of states, but he's still in a decent state overall. As regards to our 4-star riders right here, you've got Surfmo, who can be an arts looping 4-star for you, and certainly very rare, being again, summer 1 type of unit. You've got Astolfo, who's got 50% charge, and honestly, you also have Martha here, who can be good for picking up just for the fact that she can cleanse and buff strip an enemy. She can heal the party and do a lot of good stuff, and you also have Ryder Marie there too. Again, now we end up with our sort of later game writers here. We have Bakin. Bakin just came out on the banner. Maybe, you didn't roll on her and you get her here instead. Again, Bakin's an AoE arts unit. She's definitely very solid. I do think she can be a good pickup for you. She's not going to be somebody I think that's going to be immediately apparent as to how good she can be, simply because I think a lot of people are going to rely on the likes of Habitrot, but she is going to be a unit that can be quite solid as she is anti-divine. Not anti-divine, anti-demonic. And again, she is somebody that I think at least has some flexibility given the fact that she can target units with her second skill. We do have Constantine. Ironically enough, Constantine, when he first came out on an A, was very poorly received, just as he was on JP. People obviously like his design, like his look, but overall performance-wise, maybe not the best of units, because he's a more defensive-oriented unit, but he's basically a defensive-oriented unit who's a 5-star. So that is to say, he's going to take up a lot of the party cost, and he's going to be very expensive, but he's not necessarily going to earn his weight. He did recently get a buff on JP that actually really helped him out. He's a lot more usable now, but again, I think it's up to you to determine whether or not you need him. I do think he's a cool unit. He's very fun to use and play around with, but he is the epitome of a unit that I think most people do not have to have. Next up here, we basically have Reigns. Reigns is going to be a sort of meta support, if you will. She is a 50% charging support. That does make her a very good pickup, especially if you didn't have her. Even if you have someone like, say, Waiver, Reigns will still be a really, really solid option for you. So I do recommend picking her up for that reason alone. But she's obviously got a lot of other things that she can bring to the table. I'm just going to say, again, 50% charger, that is a support, so you know that they can spread that around to other people. You know that's going to be good. Next up here, we've got Da Vinci Rider. Da Vinci Rider is going to be another AoE arts writer. And one thing that I think Da Vinci Rider really does that a lot of people should pay attention to is every single time she loops, she automates a good portion of the charge. Not only because she has charge per turn, but also because she charges the entire party by 20% after her NP. So it can be really nice for allowing not just Da Vinci to loop, but also to get the party and like your supports and maybe other damage dealers that are there to their NP as well. So again, she could be a really, really good pickup, and she is just a very fluid looper, somebody that can be used very well. With regards to our 4-stars, obviously got Carmilla here, who's a little bit more of a challenge-oriented unit. And I'm going to say, to me, the big one that I would actually point out to here is actually going to be Murasaki Rider. She is single-target arts, and while she is a debuff-oriented unit, she has everything in her kit necessary to allow her to succeed as a debuff unit. So again, I think you can actually do really good things with her. She's single-target arts, so you're going to be able to loop with that. It is going to be a really effective unit for a lot of you. Next up here, we've got the early game casters. And sort of, again, we start out here with Ilya. Ilya is a 50% charging buster single target. She has certainly come a long way from where she used to be. She's always been someone that hit relatively hard, but it was only later on down the line where they actually managed to give her charge. And that's really going to help her out, as now she can actually be able to be, forced into a 3-turn of environment. So again, Ilya is a lot more usable now than she used to be. And I do think if you're someone that really likes her, she is still a good solid pickup. Now, next up here, we're going to have Shishou, aka Scotty. And Scotty is going to be a really, really good one, as she is also another sort of meta support. We do have Summer Scotty coming out later this year, but please listen to me when I say this. Summer Scotty and Scotty, while they are analogs, do slightly different things, and it is useful to have both of them. So again, picking her up here is not a loss. It is actually still a really solid pickup, assuming you did not have her already. Again, she is sort of the only quick support in the game, really, as of this moment. Certainly when Summer Scotty comes out, there'll be another one, but I do think this is going to be an early target for a lot of new players, is going to be this particular GSSR. We do also end up having, Nero Caster here. Nero Caster is an AoE buster unit. She has Invuln Pierce on her NP. She's a little bit tough to maybe like 3-turn with. You can do it, but it is certainly not going to be as good as some of the other options out there. She definitely feels the pressure of the likes of, some of the low stars like Coup Caster, but she is still a really, really solid option, even in the face of someone like him. So again, I think she could be a really good pickup for you. We also end up having Merlin in this, and Merlin is also just a really good sort of meta support. I'd say he's not meta for farming, where he's meta is actually still in the challenge environment. Basically, Merlin is going to be one of the best healers in the game. He's going to automate that for you. He's going to give charge to the entire party, stars per turn to the entire party, and healing per turn to the entire party. He's also got, charge for the entire party, and basically a party-wide invuln. And that's not even to include his hero creation, which is a very solid buster buff. So again, I highly recommend picking up Merlin. He will absolutely make a lot of challenge fights a breeze for you here. So again, really, really a solid one. And then we have Da Vinci Caster. And Da Vinci Caster is certainly no slouch either. For years, she has kind of just sat atop the actual AoE damage chart for casters. She is a limited unit, so it's been very hard for people to maybe necessarily get multiple copies of her, but it is, again, something that you can try to do. Even at MP1, she can still work well for you. She's 50% charging. You just got to be careful because she does not refund a lot, so definitely make sure you take enough charge to actually brute force a 3-turn out of her. Next up for the 4 stars here, we could certainly focus on someone like Nitocris just being an absolutely amazing unit. She is a death memer, but while death proc is normally a meme for most units, it's actually very good on Nitocris. She's got a 100% charge. She's AoE arts. So again, this actually does allow her to farm some of those early fodder waves in a node and just instant kill them so that you don't have to worry about it. We also end up having someone like Cersei, who's also a 100% charger. She's single target, she's buster, and while her damage may be a little bit lacking in some areas, she makes up for this with, again, that charge and her ability to pigify enemies, which is a unique form of stun. It actually will turn them into a pig. It doesn't work on every enemy in the game, but it does work on quite a lot of them, and she can actually be really, really useful when it does. Next up here, we've got sort of the late game casters. You can see there's a very obvious go-to for this, and this is going to be Castoria. I gotta admit, Castoria is going to be a tantalizing prospect for a lot of new players, or again, just anybody that hasn't managed to snag her to date. She is still sort of the absolute best challenge unit in the game, in the sense that she just trivializes so much of the content. She is going to make your life a lot easier for getting through annoying fights due to the fact that she has solemn defense, which is a unique form of invuln that cannot be pierced. So it's really, really a good protection mechanism for keeping you alive down the stretch in fights. And certainly that's not to say all of the other amazing things she does, like being able to charge the entire party by 30% and being an arts-focused support. So again, she's really, really a solid pickup and probably one of the best supports on this, if not the best outright. Next up here, we have Izumo no Okuni. Again, Okuni is a very interesting unit. She's a single target, 50% charging quick caster. She's actually the game's first in that regard. And again, she can be a very effective unit. As to how she performs in relation to her contemporaries or other single target casters, she is pretty much right on par with a lot of them. So again, she could be a very solid pickup if that's something that you need. Miss Crane here is a very niche support. I would struggle to call her any sort of meta support in that regard. She's very good in challenge environments because she can allow you to rotate the party without either killing anyone or using plug suit. So in that regard, she just naturally has a very nice subset of skills that can be very beneficial to you. But again, she's not a gotta have type of deal. She's just somebody that if you didn't already have her, picking her up is still a decent acquisition. Then we have Murasaki caster right here, who is going to be somebody that is AoE arts. She is going to be anti-demonic with her NP, and she is just sort of a semi-fluid looper. She's got 30% charge. You don't really have to worry about her overall refund too much. She is definitely going to be a decent AoE caster pickup. With regards to our 4 stars here, actually each one of these is noteworthy, as we can point to Charlotte here and say that she's actually a really solid pickup for a single target caster. She has 60% charge that can be divided into 2 halves, half of which can be used to target someone else if you so choose. So again, she's somewhat flexible in that regard, and she can skill seal enemies and deal super effective damage to them if they are skill sealed. So again, single target arts caster, really, really solid option there. Daiko Kuden is a AoE semi-support quick caster who's a Black Grail looper. And that's really all I need to say about them. They are just very, very good, even for a 4-star. And then we also have Miu. Miu is going to be, again, a little bit of a clunky, but still somewhat solid support, in the sense that she is going to be an arts unit, but she's definitely got some selfish aspects to her, but also some supportive aspects that's actually going to help out the party. Again, I'm going to say if you're a fan of Miu and Ilya, you're probably going to be headed this way anyways, but it is what it is, and I'm just going to say it can be an okay pickup depending on what you need. Next up here, we've got the early game assassins. We've got Cleopatra. Cleo certainly, I think, has struggled a little bit in terms of overall farming performance. This is because her Imperial Privilege has a chance of failure, and it's also going to be because she hasn't really received any sort of upgrades over time. I do think she's in dire need of an upgrade, but I am going to say she's not the worst unit in the world, and she actually has really stellar card performance and is actually really good in a challenge environment, as she has hard defense and multiple heals. So again, I do think she can be an a decent option for people. Next up, we have Shuden. Shuden has 30% charge now. She's AoE single hit arts assassin. She certainly has good damage, and she can debuff the ever-loving crud out of people, but she's maybe not the most loopable of characters, so you just have to be careful with that. MHX is certainly a unit that on JP has been rare, NA less so, but she is a single target quick assassin. She's not nearly as bad as most people think she is. She's actually come a long way because she has received a ton of buffs. Her damage performance is actually pretty good. And really the big thing that you're concerned with is her overall lack of charge and the fact that you'll need to use cards in order to get back to an NP. But just like Made Alter in that regard, it's actually not that bad in terms of overall performance, especially since she will generate a good chunk of stars for you. And again, she is sort of a saber killer, which is more than a lot of archers can say in a weird way. Now, next up here, we're going to end up having King Hassan. King Hassan is going to be sort of a buster single target assassin. He is going to be the kind of quintessential challenge assassin in that regard, as he has a lot of survivability and his kit is very strong. He also has death memes, as he can occasionally just death proc with his both NP and normal attacks. So it is something to pay attention to, as he can be a very fun unit to use, and he does still do good damage with his upgrades now. For the 4 stars here, I'm going to be honest, not a lot of these really stand out. I will say Carmilla is at least anti-female, and Wu has had a ton of upgrades to allow her to actually rival some of the 5 stars in terms of damage, assuming her Imperial Privilege lands. With regards to our late game assassins now, we have Kama here. Kama is, to me, probably one of the better pickups for a single target assassin. The reason being, she's just an all-round good kit. She's got 50% charge that also allows her to be anti-alter ego, and it gives her full effectiveness and also resistance to alter ego, so it's very, very good. She has a gut skill that does not expire until it's popped. And again, she also has the ability to confer herself overcharge, which she does have a damage dealing overcharge, so increasing it actually does help out both in damage and overall quick performance. Next up here, we've got Semiramis. I'm going to say Semiramis is unfortunately one of the worst gets here in this GSSR, and this has to do with her current status. She's actually underperforming in relation to most other welfares that exist in the game, and this just has to do with the fact that she has only really ever received one upgrade, and while it did help, it's just still not enough at this point in time. She is desperately in need of, again, some sort of extra, additional firepower, something that'll allow her to sort of punch above the weight that she currently is at. And then last but not least here, we have, again, Koyenskaya. Koyenskaya is certainly going to be a really solid pickup for a lot of people, as she is a 50% charging support unit. She is a meta support unit. She is a very good buster support. She also allows you to reduce cooldowns by 2 each time you use her first skill. So again, she is somebody that allows you to work within the cooldown sort of system to allow units to get their skills back multiple times. This is really good for buster units overall, as it is what actually allows them to pop their charge skills multiple times, and it enables sort of 3 turning with them. So again, Koyenskaya can be a really good pickup just from the support considerations, and we didn't even mention the fact that she also confers man trait buff, as well as the fact that she in her own right is a fairly solid AoE buster assassin. With regards to our 4 stars, we certainly have some interesting ones here. We have a bunch of rare summer units, both across the board here with each of these. And I'm going to say none of them is the strongest unit imaginable by any means, but we did have an upgrade to Okita Assassin that allowed her to become a Black Grail Looper, at least. That being said, I think the trophy wife here, Consort Yu, is certainly a rare one. She is story locked. Not a lot of people have an easy time getting their hands on her, so she's another one really to consider there. And honestly, even Chiome can actually be a fairly solid single target, since she's single target arts and has charge. Next up here, we get to the early game Berserkers. Kentoki Berserker has come a long way, as there was a period where he was really useful, then a period where he was less useful, and now he's back to being super useful due to the fact that he's got 50% charge and he just hits like a Mack truck. So again, he only has that single hit NP. He definitely can hit hard with it due to his NP interlude, so he is still a really good pickup. Since again, he's a Berserker, he's going to be relatively effective to everybody. He's single target buster, and he's got 50% charge. Next up here, we've got MHXA. MHXA has had a lot of upgrades over time too. Her kit's had almost a total overhaul, and the big thing that she actually lacks is overall survivability. She does lack charge as well, but her overall card performance is actually pretty good, just like the other MHX series. And again, I'm going to say the big thing with her is going to be her overall damage output is just nutty, particularly if you're in niche, and given the fact that she can actually double up her niches. Again, MHXA can be a very solid get, even though she is single target quick. Next up here, we've got Hijikata. Hijikata is sort of a 1 HP memer, as I like to call him. He's somebody that can definitely dish a high amount of damage, particularly with his third skill, if you manage to also secure crits with him, because the way to work him is to actually sort of either Chin Gong him to get him down low in health, or to wait until an enemy beats him up, then fire off his NP with his card chain and watch the numbers fly. Hijikata does more damage the less health he has, so again, it is a really sort of glass cannon type of approach. It is very boom and bust, very risky, but also very rewarding. Again, it's up to you to determine if that's a playstyle you like. Next up here, we've got Mama Raiko. Mama Raiko has also gotten a very nice upgrade last year on JP. It gave her 30% charge, and that turned her into a 3-turnable unit. This definitely helped her out, as now she works very well in the Buster system, given the fact of her third skill being both anti-demonic as well as anti-sky and earth. She definitely has some really nice niches at play. And again, a lot of people just like her character and her design overall, so she could be a very solid pickup in this GSSR pool. With regards to the 4 stars, the obvious candidate to point out here is going to be Herc, as again, he is a cockroach. He is just the epitome of somebody that can absolutely stay alive and still dish good damage in a challenge environment. But then we also end up having somebody like Lancelot, who can also be a little bit of a sort of sleeper type of quick looper. He's definitely not going to be the best one anymore by any means, but he is still a very solid option for you. Next up here, we've got sort of the late game Berserkers. We've got Arjuna Alter. Arjuna Alter still sort of top dog in terms of the amount of damage that he can dish, but he definitely has a new rival in the sense of Musashi Berserker. Still, Arjuna Alter is going to be AoE Buster. He's got 30% charge, and he can be a very solid pickup. Again, just because of the sheer raw power that he actually has. Again, though, you just got to be careful. You got to make sure you have enough stuff to actually keep him alive if you're going to take him into a challenge environment. But otherwise, that's pretty much the case with every Berserker. So again, raw power is what you're going to get with Arjuna Alter. Musashi Berserker has had a pretty bonkers upgrade to her actual NP, as now she deals a ton more damage. She even actually outpaces the likes of Ibuki Berserker a lot of the time. Ibuki Berserker can kind of still outpace her if the stars align, but it is definitely a thing, and this upgrade for Musashi is so good at this point that she actually outdamages every single AoE archer against sabers, other than Gilgamesh. So again, she has got a ton of extra damage now to spare. The big concern with her is always going to be that her refund, while definitely good, she doesn't have any charge. So if you do find yourself sort of lacking or facing, you know, low enemy amount waves, so again 2 enemy waves or something like that, you might find that she might have some issues with overall charge capacity. So again, it is something where if you take enough charge, she'll be very good, but you don't necessarily have to. And then we have Morgan Le Fay here, and this Berserker one is going to be a loaded one because all 3 of these are good. Morgan Le Fay is somebody that out of these 3 is going to do the least damage. That being said, she does have anti-man and anti-Knight of the Round and fairy niches, so she does at least have at least some niches that can rarely apply, but then man being one that will apply a ton. She's a 50% charging Buster AoE Berserker. She also has the ability to target one of her charge skills on someone else, and she has overcharge on her NP that is going to allow her to basically function very well in what we like to refer to as the Immortal comp or the Invincible comp. Again, this makes her a stellar unit for challenge environments as well as farming. So even though her damage might be a little lackluster in some situations, she is still an extremely good pickup and a very solid unit to have. With regards to our 4-stars here, we certainly have Kijo Koyo, who is a rare unit here, but I'm actually going to point basically here to again, Creamhilled single target. She's 50% charge. She's arts. So she's definitely a very solid option if you need a good single target Berserker. At NP1, you're maybe not going to get crazy damage out of her, but she can definitely still be a decent get if you have nobody else, especially because of that 50% charge skill. Now we are in the extra classes, so just understand there's going to be a couple of different rules with regards to this, particularly with the 4-stars and lower. But let's take a look right here. So for extra 1, this is our early game extra classes. You can definitely see we've got Amakusa. Amakusa actually does quite a bit of damage for a ruler. He's not necessarily going to be the best in that regard because we do have some units that can kind of work a little bit more fluidly than him. But the big thing that Amakusa always has and always will have is the fact that he is AoE buster and he buff strips before damage goes out. So in that regard, he could be a really solid option for just neutering an enemy and making it so that they cannot provide any sort of defensive capability, any way to actually stop the damage from hitting them. Do keep in mind it cannot remove buffs in things like, again, challenge environments where there's maybe a white box around the buff, a fight gimmick specific buff. But for everything else, he can strip it, and it is a very nice reason to have him. Sherlock is definitely an interesting unit. I believe he's a very fun unit to use. He is definitely the epitome of, again, a unit you do not have to have. He has gotten some nice upgrades over time, and I do think he is a very solid unit for just arts critting, and also a decent one for offensive support as he gives the party both the ability to pierce defense and invuln. Definitely a rarer thing to provide to other members of the party. Next up here, we've got Dante's Avenger. Dante's Avenger has also had some upgrades over time. He still hits very hard. He is a Black Grail looper nowadays, and definitely, even though he is AoE quick, still a very good pickup for your Avenger option. And then we also end up now with Jalter. Jalter has had a 50% charge buff given to her on JP. This is partially due to the fact that King of the Crags actually, or sorry, not Crags, Caverns actually ended up coming out on JP. But I am going to say again, Jalter is still a very, very high damage option. She is still a very good single target Buster Avenger. Highly recommend acquiring at least one single target Avenger at some point in FGO just for boss killing reasons. And Jalter can be a phenomenal one at that, since she still has the highest attack power in the game. Next up here, we've got our 4-stars. Ruler Martha is still fantastic, but she is limited from Summer 1. So again, I think a lot of people prefer to instead go with Estrella down here. She is permanent and sort of the easier one to build over time because of that. But Martha can still actually be a really solid one. You do also have Lobo as a single target Avenger. And then again, neither Gorgon nor Passion Lip are slouches either. Next up here for our sort of late game extra classes, we have basically, again, Bunny Artoria. Now, Bunny Artoria is not going to do the most in terms of NP damage for you. What makes Bunny Artoria so strong is her unique ability to shuffle a deck of cards and exclude one of your allies' cards from appearing. That means the shuffle will occur only between 10 cards rather than a total of 15. So it can be very, very valuable for sort of securing crits and securing specific cards appearing. It's not a guaranteeable thing, but it is very, very much one of the best ways to increase the odds of it happening. And again, this does allow her to basically provide the entire party with crit damage on top of that, making her somewhat of a very crit-specific monster. She can work very well in farming odd-structured nodes because of this, and it's something I think a lot of people really just overlook with her all the time. Next up here, we have QSH. QSH is going to be a very solid challenge unit. He is a solo artist, a cockroach like we were describing with Hercules, and the fact that he is very difficult for enemies to put down. Him being a ruler means he's resistant, but he also has invuln and taunt every single time he NPs, so he can force enemies to focus on him and sort of soak up all their damage. The big thing you're going to need to watch out is just his overall sustain over time. Next up here, we have basically Space Ishtar. Space Ishtar, while she has been passed now by a lot of the AoE Avengers in terms of raw damage output, is still a very solid, very flexible, very adaptable AoE Avenger. And you might want this sort of thing as a neutral damage dealer option for farming. She could be very good, especially in a scenario in which she NPs multiple times, as her overcharge will just actually keep scaling over time. Again, Space Ishtar still sort of the kind of like baseline that a lot of other units get compared to. Next up here, we have Nobu Venger, and Nobu Venger is the be careful of who you make fun of in high school type of situation. A lot of people, when Nobu Venger first came out, thought Nobu Venger was crap. I at least saw the potential here and saw that basically she always had that potential to card hard. But again, they ended up actually going back and buffing her, and now she is a monster with the amount of damage that she can do. She's anti-divine, anti-sky, and she has the ability to double that up, and she can be made to 3 turns. So again, she can do some pretty crazy numbers nowadays, and is just overall a fun unit to have. Speaking of fun, Summer BB is the epitome of that, as just like we were talking about with Bunny Artoria's ability to shuffle cards, Summer BB has the ability to lock them in place for 3 turns. That is to say, the cards will not change unless you rotate the party or someone dies. It's a really, really powerful ability, but again, it ultimately depends on you getting the right cards in the first place to lock in. But I'm still going to say she's a fun unit to use. She's a 50% charging AoE Buster Moon Cancer, and she also has Drain on her NP, another thing that a lot of people end up overlooking. So she can be a good pickup for you. For our 4 stars here, actually all 3 of these 4 stars are really good. Double X can be sort of a single target arts 30% charging with Invuln Pierce Foreigner. And you also end up having Estrella, who is anti-evil, just gonna hit very hard arts single target ruler. And then Hephaestion, a single target arts with 100% charge pretender. Each one of those is a solid pickup. Next up here, we get to a newer batch of the extra classes. You can see Karen here is going to be really solid. She's AoE quick. She's got 50% charge, and she deals more damage actually if she is debuffed. So again, she's a very, very strong unit, and it's easy to secure a debuff since you can either put an Avenger in the backline or slap a Black Grail on her, both of which are just going to allow her damage to really succeed. So again, she could be a very, very good option in terms of damage for AoE ruler. We have Ruler Moriarty next here. His damage is maybe not going to be as good as someone like Karen's, but he could still be a pretty decent option. He's also a Black Grail Looper. He's AoE arts. He has 50% charge. So again, he can be a decent option for you. It's totally up to you, though, to determine who you want and what your goals are here to try and target. We also end up having Himiko, and Himiko is a sort of, if you want to think about her, similar to, again, someone like, I'm going to say, probably Super Orion, in the fact that she cards very hard with Buster cards. The difference is she can sort of help facilitate the party to do so similarly as well, and she also has a unique skill that actually allows the entire party to generate 8 stars per turn, which means you're going to be looking at 24 stars per turn instead. So definitely a really, really strong option. She can also work in the Invincible and Immortal comps as well. Next up here, we've got Summer Kama. Summer Kama is going to out-damage Space Ishtar just a little bit if we're talking arts, and she definitely has the upside of also dealing super effective damage to charmed enemies. That being said, you do have to watch out. If your charm doesn't land, Summer Kama's damage is going to go down but quite a bit, but she can be your AoE Arts Avenger, as she is Art. She does have 50% charge, so she is still a very solid pickup. Tyra right here is going to be also a very, very good single target Avenger. She doesn't necessarily do the best damage all the time, as a lot of her overall damage scalability is dependent on the enemy being Genji traded, which is a very rare one to have. but she is a cockroach. She is very hard to kill in a challenge environment, as she has both multi-turn dodge as well as guts, as well as a bond CE that can stack. So really, really a nice overall unit for challenge environments. Then we have Summer Kiara. She is good both for farming and challenge. She hits like a Mack truck, especially with her third skill active. She is AoE Arts Moon Cancer. You just have to be careful about her overall refund, but she is a 50% charger, so definitely another good one. And like we already mentioned before, we have the same pairing here as before for the 4 stars, so it's still a really, really stacked selection. Next up here, we've got some alter egos with some foreigners, and you guys can see we have Okitan. Well, Okitan certainly has been surpassed by the likes of Tiamat down the line. She is still a really solid pickup. She can be a very good Buster AoE 3-turn alter ego for you. Super good in that regard for things like farming. She has 30% charge, so you can brute force her in the Koyanskaya system. Again, maybe not the best overall for damage, but still a very usable unit. We also end up having Kiara here, who is going to be decent, I'd say, at farming, but probably not your go-to. Her damage is fairly good. The refund is going to be a big concern. But ultimately, at the end of the day, she is a 50% charger, and she does have a ton of sort of overlap, having invuln, pierce, and buff strip in her kit. And then we can also see we have Melt here as a single target quick alter ego. She is a very good boss killer. She has multi-turn duration on her evasion and also ends up having NP damage up, as well as a stacking crit buff nowadays and the ability to remove buffs from her enemies. Then right here, you guys can see we also have Abby, very much a similar scenario. She's single target buster, and she also has the ability to buff strip enemies before damage goes out. She is going to have charge per turn, and she is going to have some issues overall with her ability to gain charge naturally from her cards. But again, I am going to say she could be a very good challenge unit and very good boss killer, especially if you surround her with the right units. Next up here, we've got Hokusai. Hokusai is going to be anti-man traded. She is definitely somebody that can pop off for you, as she is AoE arts, but she can hit hard and she can stack defense downs with her third skill. So definitely a very solid option. She also, in my opinion, just has one of the best looking NPs in the game. So definitely a really solid pickup for her. Again, we already talked about each of these units prior, so I'm not going to bother to go over them again. And basically, we now end up with yet another set of these. So for our extra 5 here, we've got King Protea. King Protea is going to be the epitome of a challenge unit. You can farm with her, but her real strength lies in winding up and actually having multiple turns to get her buffs rolling. Again, you just have to be careful that an enemy isn't somehow going to kind of take her out before she gets a lot of health, but she can actually get to the highest effective health in the game due to the stacking nature of her HP up. And she is an AoE alter ego, so you kind of know where she'll be effective, and she can hit decently hard if all of her buffs are lined up. We do have Summer Abby here as well. Summer Abby is a 50% charger. I like to call her an AoE or rather a single target with splash damage, because she is AoE buster, but definitely she does more damage to specific targets that she puts her debuffs on, not necessarily the entire wave. This is still fine for the majority of things, but again, it definitely depends on what you're trying to go after. She is still a solid unit. She's also the game's first unit that can put people to sleep even before Oberon, and she can use that actually quite effectively. So again, she is a very decent pickup, despite what a lot of people will say about her. Next up here, we've got Van Gogh. Van Gogh is going to be the epitome of, again, another challenge unit. She is a crit monster. She has the ability to basically stun her foes. She also dabbles in curses. And again, she can just absolutely crit up a storm. You can sit there and just kind of keep looping her with her NP and her cards, generating even more crits and actually just annihilating your foes. Then we end up having Voyager here. Voyager is a 50% charging AoE quick foreigner. Voyager's definitely had a lot of love given to him over time. His damage is certainly a lot better, and he also, like Da Vinci Rider, has the capability every time he NPs to charge the entire party's gauge by 20%. So definitely a very interesting unit in that regard. And then next we have Yang, and Yang is going to be another sort of single target arts foreigner. You can compare her a little bit to Double X, but what Double X may have in overall charge and raw damage, Yang is going to have in conditional damage against burn enemies, as well as, again, the ability to taunt, the ability to drain, and the ability to charge per turn. She's very nice in a challenge environment, particularly if you can get burn stacked or get something like Honey Lake thrown on her. But again, it is totally up to you if this is something you desire. Again, here the 4 stars are going to be the same. And now we get to our last of the 20 pools. Right here, we've got Ashia Doman. Doman definitely doesn't do the best AoE damage. He's AoE quick as far as alter egos go. But the real secret to Doman is going to be the fact that he has 80% charge. You can obviously combine that with his append to allow him to sort of unassisted get to an NP. And he also buffs evil and chaotic units, including himself. This is what allows for a lot of double Doman comps to be used, as they can double stack their buffs on each other and then basically just sit there NPing for free practically, and also critting waves down, since they can also get extra crit damage buffs in that. So again, Doman can definitely be a sneakily good unit and sort of one of the game's better kept whale secrets as an easy way to get through a lot of nodes. Next up here, we've got Super Bunyan. Super Bunyan absolutely hits very hard. She is single target buster. She is 30% charge, so you can brute force her and force her to 3-turn as a single target unit. She does have the like mechanic where basically each one of her cards and each one of her NPs is going to allow her to NP even harder. Definitely a solid unit in terms of overall performance, but again, I do know a lot of people don't really care too much for her design. Next up, we've got probably one of the most fun units in the game to use, and that's Bizet. Bizet is the game's first true counter unit. That is to say, she will taunt enemies, and actually every single time they take an action that may affect her, she will actually respond by attacking them even on their turn. So again, you do have to use the NP. It is only active during their turn, but it is a very solid way to actually effectively counter certain units and deal a ton of extra damage. So while she is a quick-based alter ego with a support NP, she is certainly a really fun unit to use. You just have to keep her alive down the stretch, because again, enemies that are taunted will start trying to beat her to death. Next up here, we end up with Jacques de Molay, and Jacques is a very interesting unit in the sense that she is going to be AoE quick as a foreigner. She does have 50% charge. In that regard, prior to a lot of the Voyager buffs, she was considered to just be hands down a little bit better than him. But now with Voyager's buff, we could definitely say they're a lot more competitive. She definitely deals extra damage to cursed enemies and is something that I think that a lot of people can easily take advantage of. So she can still be a very solid pickup for a lot of people. We also have Koyanskaya of Dark up next. She is an AoE buster foreigner here, and she is going to be the buster unit. It's going to kind of be the first one that allows buster units to be charged by 30%. That is to say, she can charge the entire party 30% and give them buster up. So definitely a nice setup right there. This doesn't really make her a meta support because a lot of the other things that she can do in her kit are very niche, but it does allow her to really facilitate some multi-damage dealer setups and still provide a decent amount of buffage for herself. So again, I do think she is a very solid pickup, even for that reason alone, as all she's going to do is provide you with even more options. And then last but not least, we've got Oberon, arguably the game's best damage support overall. Oberon is the epitome of power creep in FGO. He is the game's first 70% charging support, and he is also somebody that can double every single source of NP damage, including things like Mystic Codes, Craft Essences, Command Codes, and Servant Passives. Anything that a servant might have that increases their NP damage, that is to say an actual NP damage buff, Oberon will double it. That is a really, really strong aspect to him, and it is why he is so sought after in terms of overall damage performance. Now, we can certainly take a look here and see that this is the exact same 4-star unit, so I don't really have to say anything about that. So, out of these banners, which do I feel like is going to be the most solid option? I do feel like it's going to depend on you. I think it's going to depend on if you're a veteran and if you're a, new player, if you're a free to play, if you're a whale. I can't really speak to that because I don't know you and I don't know your account. What I can say is there are definitely some very obviously good pickups. I've already kind of talked about each one of these in a nutshell, the units that I felt like were going to be a really, really good one. That being said, I do think there's a lot of potential right here in the sort of early archer pool. Part of the reason for that is going to be because it is only 4 units, and also the fact that each one of these units is very solid. There really is not a whiff of a unit here. That is to say, any one of these that you get could be a very good pickup for you. I'm also going to say potentially the next one also can be very solid. Again, I think maybe something like the Lancers, we're not necessarily going to have the best of options here, as some of these might be hit or miss for you depending on what you're after. We can kind of scroll back up to the Sabers and say that part of the issue with them is not that there aren't good units here, it's that the pool is so big that you're unlikely to get the one that you're actually after. It can still be a good thing to roll them if you're looking for just any Saber, but certainly if you have your eyes set on one, the bigger the pool, the harder this is going to be to get. And keep in mind, there will be other GSSRs in the future, including things like the Destiny Summon, where you can actually end up setting which units you wish to actually get. So definitely an interesting thing to say the least, but still something that we will not be receiving on NA yet this year. I do think obviously the Lancer category here can be fairly solid as well. Again, each one of these units is a very good one. The arguably worst of which might be someone like Ryoma, and I'm still going to say that he is still a very, very good arts looper in that regard. I do think with that consideration, especially if you're someone who is new, this banner can be a very solid one as it has both Scotty and Merlin on it, and really all of the casters here are very solid pickups and still fairly good to this day. And then naturally, just this one right here is going to be one that I think a lot of people are going to target, because Castoria is going to be one of the best options for anybody if they don't have her. I often get asked, should you just go after one unit when that's the only unit you need on the GSSR? To a large degree, I think the answer to that is no. You need to pick something where your averages are going to be better, where any option that you get can be good. But in the case of Castoria, it's very tantalizing to just go after specifically her, because the upside is so potentially good if you do get her. So again, I do think this is some that a lot of people should pay attention to. And again, none of the casters here are really bad. Crane is the most niche out of all of them, and still somebody that can be very useful to you in challenge content. I would say normally that this assassin one's fairly good, but I think the problem is going to be Semiramis in that regard. So again, if you're fine getting her, definitely go after something like this. But I think, again, when you have a clear, what I'm going to say, unit that is in need of help, I don't really think that that's something that I'm going to recommend as one of the better GSSR choices. I can certainly say your Buster one here is not bad, but it's sort of pales in comparison to the insanity that this Berserker one is. This Berserker one has 3 of the best Berserkers in the game. Even more so now that Musashi actually got her NP interlude and upgrade. So again, yeah, this one is just an absolutely nutty choice. If you need a high octane damage dealer, particularly in the Berserker category, this is just sort of a no-brainer. You really can't go wrong. It is the safe pick. Even if you maybe already have one of these units, getting an additional MP level of them is going to just make them even more bonkers. So again, certainly if your eyes aren't set on one of the meta supports or something like that, this one to me is going to be one of the best options that you actually can choose. Out of that, second we start getting into these extra classes, the pools start getting very, very bloated. Again, you obviously have, someone like, say, Oberon all the way down here in the last one, but I really don't recommend pulling on any of these extra pools unless you're okay with all of the options or you just are in that bad of a need of extra classes. Because again, some of these may be really good for you, others may be less desirable. And I do think even in the case of someone like Oberon, the fact that he is in a 6 wide type of pool makes it a little bit less desirable to pull on. Keep in mind too, almost all of these units will have banners upcoming. I think Yang is currently the rarest one on JP in terms of the overall time at which she's been without a banner. But outside of that, most other units here are going to have a banner within the next 12 months at worst. So again, definitely something to consider. But yes, I highly recommend taking a look at each one of these, deciding for yourself what it is that you need. But I think for gameplay considerations, obviously things like the second Berserker one, or again, even trying to go after Castoria or the casters here for the meta supports, those are going to be sort of my go-to recommendations for sort of the most brain-dead choices that can really help out your account. Hope you guys found this informative. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys for the next anniversary video. Fuck, that took longer than I wanted it to. Why does it always take longer than I want it to, chat? I feel like every time I sit down to do one of these, I'm like, it's gonna be like half an hour. And then it don't. It just don't. Berserker 2 versus Jarcher pool. I think the only issue that I have with the Jarcher pool overall is that, like, maybe you don't want someone like Say, or maybe you just like already are someone that has someone like Super Orion, right? Like, it is still good because it's small, but I'm gonna say it's good if you're okay getting all the units. If you're not okay getting one of the units, I wouldn't bother at that point. I think there's some easier options. But again, Jarcher's still a good pickup to this day. What 7 years of servants does to you, how it feels to chew 5 gum from hell. Did I hear you wrong, or did I hear you say shooting an assassin with single target? She is AoE. If I said single target, I am incorrect. So I hope I didn't say that. Did I say single target, chat? Does anyone remember? Yes. I don't remember. You think Face Stay Night ticket will be part of the anniversary? What do you mean? Like, do I think they're gonna bring it forward? They might, because I just saw earlier, was it, chat, that Fate Stay Night is available for pre-order. On Steam or something like that. I don't know. I saw someone on Twitter mention it. On the Switch? That's depressive. Which is really funny because we do know that it is announced to be coming to Steam, which is also why, like, you know, that conversation we were having the other day about Tsukihime and how Nasu doesn't want to bring it to PC is kind of stupid because we're bringing Stay Night to Steam. So, like, I don't know, right? Like, hey, Fox, thank you for the raid. Welcome, everybody. Also, I didn't say it earlier, but Ventus, if you're still here, thank you for the resub. I see the bootleg. How's it going, guys? How was stream for you guys? I finally got you back. Okay, now I'm gonna have to get you back. But again, we were just going over the GSSR. I just got done recording my video for it. It took a long time because you guys know me, and I can't just like not go over every unit. You know, the one, chat, the smart thing I did is I didn't talk about every 4-star. That was the smart thing. Oh man, I never should have even talked about the 4 stars. But at least at least I managed not to like go crazy with it. So you want random? UBW is still listed on Steam. Wait, what do you mean by UBW? And Kemba, thank you for the gift to Fox. I appreciate it. But yeah, chat, if you haven't ever checked him out, go check out Mr. Fox for us. He is obviously a Barcast fan. Also an enjoyer of FGO. The movie? Wait, on Steam? You can get the movie? What? Steam had anime? What? I never heard about this. When did Steam have anime? I feel like my whole life has been a lie. That is super weird. Got almost 900k left till Bond 15. I'm just not in a hurry to bond any of my favorites because I know they bond naturally. You can ask chat just how often I end up using a saber face for something. So it's like I usually just don't try because I know I end up having to use them. There have been 2 exceptions to that. I am purposefully backline bonding Maid Alter because I actually need Bond 11 to be able to get her to 120 right now. Or is it Bond 12? I don't remember. It's whatever my next Bond level is. But there's that, and then I think I have to. I think I'm gonna have to do the same thing with MHXA. But outside of that, like I usually don't try to fast track it. Wait, Steam has anime? That's what I said. I never knew this was a thing. Huh? Also, screw these people. I'm just. I am so confused. So I assume that means that people that bought it still have it, but you can no longer buy it. You know, I had this terrifying thought, chat. What if Steam was like Crunchyroll and it just had a like, hey, you can sign in, you can pay a subscription, and you can just watch anime. And I feel like so many people would just do that. I feel like that would make Steam like an absurd amount of money. Like, because they wouldn't have to fight with things like Crunchyroll. They wouldn't have to worry about being a pirate for anime anymore. They would be watching it legitimately. I'm just saying, I feel like it would actually like make them a ton of money. But in a weird way, I also don't want that to happen because that would cost me a ton of money. For purchase or rent through Steam? Interesting. Yeah, and I can see why, because like actually having like a full-blown video hosting site, chat, that's a ton of memory. Like, I know y'all are like, oh well, CAD, you know, they've got Call of Duty on here for 300 gigs, and you're right, but I'm also going to tell you that like the sheer amount of like video storage that they would do, I think Valve probably looked at that and they were just like looking at the projections, they were like, yeah, let's not do that. That's going to be terrible for us. But no, I never knew this. I actually never knew that not only did Steam have like video services, but also that it had this, like literally unlimited Blade Works. And I assume this is the OG. Yeah, it definitely is the OG. It's the Dean, the Studio Dean one. Fate is on Steam. Is it though? Like, I feel like I looked for like Fate Stay Night and it was not. Like it's coming. It's going to be available, but it's not. I remember I bought ReZero the anime on sale for like $5. Holy shit. Yeah, if I had known this, like, chat, can you imagine a Steam sale for that? My God. Like, oh, there's so much anime I would buy. Like, just to have it. And it would just be stored on Steam, and I wouldn't have to, like, keep it around on my drive somewhere. I'd go broke, right? Like, the only place I saw it for pre-order was PlayAsia, and it still has a TBA release date. Yeah, I'll have to go back and look, because like I said, I'm pretty sure it was Type Ramza that was tweeting it out. But let me go see what he said, because I feel like I saw the announcement that it was available. Oh, maybe he took it down because I'm not seeing it anymore. Yeah, the link was on PlayAsia and it's only for the Switch. Okay, yeah, that's I and while that is a thing, I'm gonna say that also is kind of like somewhat false advertising because it's not like an official dealer for it, right? Like, I just I don't know. That to me, like, announce it when it actually is available on the like Nintendo store or on Steam or something like that. But it is what it is. Because you'll see like these third party sites all the time will like start taking pre-orders and stuff for stuff that crap, they don't even know how many copies they're gonna get. Someone should start whispering to Gabe about this idea. I mean, they can, but like I'm gonna say that Steam has probably already decided against this, right? Like it makes sense that Steam didn't go this route. Because chat, this is the problem that like Twitch and YouTube both have. Storing so many videos over time, that is a shit ton of server space. I gotta be honest, I have no idea how YouTube does it. I have no idea. I do not know how YouTube hasn't had like a server farm somewhere go absolutely Chernobyl and like just blow the hell up and just not like, be able to store videos anymore. Because it's just got to be wild. Like when you actually start seeing the metrics for just how many videos are like stored and saved per minute. Yeah. So YouTube stated back in 2022 that as of June of 2022, more than 500 hours of video were uploaded to YouTube every minute. I don't know how you keep up with that. That just seems like impossible to me. So it's like, and I assume that number only goes up over time, chat. Like, I do not think that number goes down. So, like, it's kind of nutty if you really think about just how popular something like YouTube is. So, again, I gotta imagine the server costs are absurd for YouTube. And I'm sure they have different ways of compressing it and cataloging it and making it so that it's, like, not as overbearing. But at the same time, that is just wild to me that they are able to, like, do stuff like that. Chat, I am going to end it here. I think we are going to go ahead and do a raid. I did want to do media share night, but again, this ran over, so we may punt media share to another night if I'm just not feeling playing another game or something like that. We'll just have to see. I'm trying to see who else I got on. I got a Mr. CZ on, so we're going to go raid him. I don't often get to raid CZ in the middle of the week. He is playing some FGO. Again, if you've never watched CZ, he's a good buddy of mine, member of my stream team. He himself plays multiple gacha games, including Wuthering Waves. So if you guys are in on that train, he's more than happy to talk to you about it. Again, I will be back tomorrow. We'll be doing even more stuff. And I hope you guys enjoyed. I know it was a long one, and I haven't gotten the videos out yet, but we will start actually getting them out because I've got one I need to get out before all the anniversary videos that I'm trying to do. So again, it'll happen. Oh, did the raid already happen? I'm sorry, chat. Hold on. Let me double check this.